Okay, let's bring the 2023 budget workshop, day one, to order. October 3rd, 2022 at 4 p.m. Regarding roll call, all trustees are here and present with the exception of Trustee Doxey, who will be joining us in just a few minutes. So the next agenda item would be new business, which would be finance, Clerk-Treasurer, discussion of the 2023 village budget, and I believe with an introduction from Administrator Murphy.
Yes, thank you. You all have the budget message in front of you, so if you'd like to follow along. A couple of our staff would like me to skip the reading of it, but I'll do that for the benefit of the listening public. All righty. Thank you for the opportunity to present the 2023 annual budget. It is the result of hard work by village department heads and staff. I thank them for their tremendous efforts to balance the needs of the village with what the taxpayers can afford. The department heads have been frugal in their requests coming out of a worldwide pandemic, especially as our citizens return to work and a more normal life. We are mindful of the impact our funding requests will have on our citizens' pocketbooks. Each of us is conscious of our values, primarily fiscal responsibility, which the village strategic plan defines as providing services in an affordable, proficient, and sustainable manner. This 2023 budget request holds the line on taxes while ensuring our employees stay with us through this challenging rebound. Remember our mission statement. The village is dedicated to providing its citizens and businesses high-quality municipal services in a positive, responsive, sustainable, and affordable manner. This is what this budget does. We hope you agree that we have achieved our mission. Our strategic plan influenced the 2023 budget. Our values guide everything we do. They are respect, collaboration, fiscal responsibility, innovation, professionalism, transparency, and safety. This plan also contains our vision statement as well as our goals that we need to achieve to fulfill our strategic plan. Our vision statement: the village has become one of the Midwest's most desirable, welcoming, and dynamic communities in which to live and do business through its provision of fiscally responsible, innovative municipal services, balanced growth, and forward-thinking leadership. Our goals: growth, neighborhoods, manage the impact of TID 5, infrastructure, environment, safe community, and partner and promote. The following pages outline how the village will work to achieve these goals within this budget proposal and beyond. The connections to the strategic planning goals. Goal 1, attract future growth and development to reflect the needs of the community. The best way the village can achieve this goal is to keep property taxes in check. Based on the estimates we have today, this budget, as proposed, lowers the property tax rate for the village. The rate last year was $6.75, and we estimate the rate for this budget will go down by about 30 cents. With this lower rate, we will surely attract future ratepayers and assist our current ratepayers in keeping more of their hard-earned money. A word of caution is in order, as it is every year. Some of the final numbers we use to prepare the budget are from the state of Wisconsin. The state releases the final numbers on November 1st, so this estimate carries a variation of 5 cents in either direction. Still great news. Goal number 2, pursue opportunities for developing one or more neighborhood centers. The Village Civic Campus continues to grow, as you've all seen Campus Park as you've come in today. This budget slightly increases Parks and Recreation operation funding to anticipate additional programming once Campus Park landscaping is established and ready for activity next year. Goal 3, manage the impact of TID 5. Manage the impact of development to minimize communities' disruption and maximize community betterment. We continued to see strong interest in TID 5 as we work with our CEDC M7 and Foxconn to attract large development to the site. The village anticipates completion of 2 TID 5 projects in 2023. In the north area, also known as Area 4, the completion of Enterprise Way will connect County Trunk Highway H to International Drive. Additionally, the sanitary sewer extension along Lewis Sorensen will expand service westward between International and East Frontage Road. Goal 4, maintain quality services and infrastructure. The proposed budget commits $27,000 for Phase 2 of the village's electronic poll book implementation. This commitment allows the Clerk-Treasurer to purchase another 10 devices. Paired with our investments over the last 2 years, the village will utilize 36 electronic poll books to improve the voting process and increase election efficiency. Goal number 5, maintain a commitment to improving environmental assets and amenities. The proposed budget includes about $1.25 million for work related to improvements for Hoods Creek and Lamperic Creek. Both projects improve vital stormwater detention and enhance water quality. In addition, the budget includes $555,000 to reconstruct Kinsey Avenue. The budget also includes $529,000 in Public Works capital funding to replace outdated equipment and purchase new equipment to allow additional in-house work. In addition, the sewer utility budget anticipates a rate increase to help pay for the costs associated with keeping sewer overflows out of people's basements by reducing infiltration and inflow in the Cozy Acres area. Goal 6, provide a safe and secure community. The proposed police department budget will improve the daily work and efficiency of the department with the purchase and implementation of electronic time cards. Bringing this operation up to date will continue the digitization of the department's work and make patrol cars even more flexible rolling offices. The proposed South Shore Fire Department budget continues funding ambulance remounts. The budget includes 2 Type 3 ambulance remounts costing about $350,000. Goal 7, actively partner in the promotion of the region. For 2022, tourism in Mount Pleasant has been nothing short of phenomenal. The Tourism Commission pledged nearly $50,000 in grant funds to 11 events throughout Racine County. The Commission has also put on 11 events of its own, bringing in thousands of visitors. For 2022 was a year of firsts for Mount Pleasant. The village hosted the Mount Pleasant Momentum, a bike race held in conjunction with Tour of America's Dairyland, around an incredible route encircling Foxconn's Mount Pleasant site. Over 500 cyclists from around the world raced throughout the day. Many of the cycling teams and spectators stayed in our hotels. Roma Lodge hosted over 1,500 bacon lovers in its inaugural Bacon Fest in August. Our local triathlon club, Strive, utilized Racine Unified's new Aquatic Center and our incredible Pike River Pathway to host a series of outdoor-indoor triathlons. These events and others helped keep our local hotel properties at 90% occupancy during the summer months. Additionally, our Enjoy Mount Pleasant website is up and running to attract additional visitors. Between hosting events and promoting our fantastic village, tourism in Mount Pleasant produced some serious results in 2022. We expect 2023 to be even better, and this budget continues the wise hotel tax investments managed by the Tourism Commission. So in conclusion, I want to thank our Finance Department, including Finance Director Mike Bond, Deputy Director Heather Teigland, and Accountant Myra Sotelo for their diligence and many hours of hard work preparing this budget. I also thank the other department heads and additional management staff for their assistance in creating this document. We believe the budget's revenue and expenditure statements are fair and reasonable. We were fiscally conservative without sacrificing the level of service that the village provides and without hindering needed improvements. The budget is financially sound and demonstrates a genuine effort to be as efficient and cost-conscious as possible. In addition, we focused on preserving current amenities while keeping rates and fees reasonable. The presented budget allows us to provide exceptional service by employing well-trained and highly motivated staff while funding necessary maintenance improvements and additions to our infrastructure. This budget reflects our commitment to maintaining and improving this community and positioning it to be financially sound in the future. We believe it to be worthy of your consideration and hopefully your approval. Thank you. So, do you want to start our first?
Yeah. Well, before we get into that, I think what gets everybody's attention straight out of the chute is 30 cents a thousand rate decrease. But did anybody have any thoughts on Maureen's opening remarks? Otherwise, we'll jump into first item.
We'll see how she performs on all those opening remarks as we go through it, so.
I think the opening remarks covered everything, and we can all go home, and
We're done?
we're done.
Make a
That's all we got.
Good job, Michael.
Did I hear a motion to approve the budget?
Now, first up, we have the Municipal Court Department. Amanda and the judge, Mike Fegley.
Ms. Amanda.
As far as the numbers go for this one, there's really minimal changes, as you can see. Any specific questions that you may have for the municipal court, obviously direct to Mike and Amanda.
Seems pretty, no big changes.
Pretty straightforward every year.
Have you noticed any particular increases this year in any specific areas? I know we talked about, we have a traffic group that's been patrolling Highway 31 pretty diligently. I don't know if you've noticed any increase in revenues or tickets in that regard.
Tickets right now are,
Can we get you on mic?
we have noticed that there has been enforcement in those areas, but I also think with the officers that, the positions that are empty right now, that's almost kind of made up for it, so it's kind of staying pretty even. Our numbers are not higher than they have been, but they have been steady in regards to citation numbers and the revenue that's coming in.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have two quick questions. Number one, even if I look at your, your revenues exceed the department expenses substantially. So what happened to all the money that revenue, because your revenue, you're projecting 684, 200, and total department expenses 167, 366.
Well, this is in the Fund 100, which is also what houses our police department.
Okay.
Our police department, obviously, this is where the revenue for the police department goes, if you want to
Okay,
look at it
okay,
that
so
way.
this is
It's
not-
the same fund, so
Okay, so we use this, to offset some other
absolutely.
cost. And my second question is, last year also, the budget had the revenue of 688, 200, and estimate is more than that, 707. So hopefully you can do even better this year.
We try.
I mean, other than that, it's pretty good. I see your expenses budgeted only at 2.3% increase. That's very nominal. So
Department of Revenue is back to collecting, their enforcements, so that was on pause with everything with COVID, so
Sure.
they have put that
Yeah.
back into effect now.
pretty good. Thank you.
Yeah, it looks like what they're proposing for 2023 is flat compared to what was adopted last year, and they did, it does look like they're gonna finish out a little stronger than projected. Otherwise, everything is, as you said, pretty much like, rinse and repeat from last year.
One of the things you're just saying.
Sure.
One of the things that let me point out, Amanda runs this by herself. There was a discussion earlier this last couple months about whether she should have an assistant clerk. There's just no point in having her. We'd literally be spending money we don't need to do. So she should really be commended for what she gets accomplished back there as a one-person show. I think we said before, the city had 3 full-time clerks, has less tickets and less revenue than we do.
Wow,
So,
really?
Great job.
yeah, I don't know, they still do, they might be down to 2 now, but I'm not positive. I know they brought the one that retired, she comes back and does some part-time stuff. But at one point, they had 3 full-time clerks, we had Amanda, so,
Sounds like an applause line.
Amanda?
yeah.
That sounds good, but I would not compare anything to the city. That's a mess.
What? Right, that may not be the best example of it, but yeah,
And it's being recorded, so that's okay.
yeah. But,
Very
yes.
good.
Thank you, very nice, yes.
Must be
Thank you.
very efficient.
It's all attributed to her boss, but. She knew I had to do something.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Amanda.
Thanks, Frank.
Thanks, Mike, Amanda.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, batter up, Claude. TID 5.
Mine started on page 109. Again, very simple, not a whole lot of changes here either. We continue to, obviously, Foxconn continues to be the #1 taxpayer, not only in the village, but as far as Racine County. We estimate that.
You want to get yourself a little closer to the mic, Claude?
Sorry, yep. So again, Foxconn will be the #1 taxpayer in the county. So that tax is going up a little bit as far as what we'll collect there. Transfer from Caledonia, that's just part of the Clean Water Fund stuff that we do there. And sort of, again, we show it. We still have an issue there trying to collect some of that, but we're working on that. As well as, and just checking in interest. You'll see, some of them are down, actually, if you look at the miscellaneous revenue, I dropped that down quite a bit. With all the activity we have going on that unfortunately I can't go into detail with out there, I don't know if I want to lease that land next year or not. So that's really where the difference is in the lease price. Because we've leased a bunch of that land. So right now, I don't know what I'm going to do with that at this point in time. But that may change, so then it'll go up, which is all good. But at this point in time, I don't have any plans of leasing any of that land out there in areas 2 or 3. Okay? That's the difference there. We still fund the folks that we're funding from the police, as well as we attribute money to the fire department as well. So none of that stuff really changed there on page 111. 112, again, equipment-wise, we just have the 27, that's a little bit, and we have a schedule that we've been using for the police and for the fire as well. Professional services, we left a little bit lower than what it was last year. And again, project-wise, we still are finishing up International Drive sewer. It's not completed as of yet. Had to extend that project out a little bit. They're waiting for a piece. It's a gate, for lack of a better term, and I just extended their timeline today. It's in customs, waiting to be signed off and get through customs. So hopefully we'll see it in the next 30 days, so it should be complete this year. And then obviously, Maureen Ray touched on the sewer along Louis Sorensen Road, as well as Enterprise Way. Those are also will be completed by, I would say, June of next year at the latest. Well, they'll be done. We still have 2 water projects. It was originally one project, which it was a big project. It was almost $20 million. So they split it into 3 phases. So phase 2, and they did already, or in the process of doing right now. But phase 1 and 3, they held off on. So they're going to do those projects. Tentatively, right now is scheduled for 1 project in '23 and 1 project in '24. Again, I'm not pressing them, We have the money, obviously, in our account, you know, so we'll collect interest on it, you know, but the different thing, if I needed it today, we could press them, because technically, they are in violation of our agreement that we have with the Racine, but at this point in time, there's no need for it, so I'm not gonna press the envelope. So that's where we left that.
Do you think, Claude, there's the potential for savings a little bit too by waiting?
I think yeah, absolutely, because prices went crazy.
For water,
Yep,
it's been
absolutely
really
right.
bad.
Yeah, so we're hoping that, you know, things kind of calm down a little bit and supply, you know, gets better. And, you know, everyone's getting the stuff, I think, a lot faster than had been for a while. And you'll see that in the construction going on Enterprise as well as, actually as well as Endeavor. So product is getting easier to get. So yes, we are hoping that those projects do come down a little bit. We did bid it this year. It didn't come in horribly over our budget, but it did come in over our budget. Then again, Racine just decided that it was tearing up too much of their city, and I agree with that, don't get me wrong. And again, we had no need to rush it and, you know, force their hand, didn't make any sense. So we left it alone. So other than that, that's really the last project as far as, that we'll be really involved with as far as any big water projects. And again, today, we have out there the availability of 5.8 million gallons of water a day. We still already have that. These last two projects, quite frankly, it's part of the whole system, don't get me wrong, but the biggest benefit, quite frankly, is Racine. These are 20-inch pipes that are probably 50 to 75 years old that are going to 42, folks. They're massive pipes, the last of the phase, and it's right there by the plant. So again, benefits us, don't get me wrong, but it clearly is a huge benefit, which was why they gotta pay half, by the way. We pay 49, they pay 51. So they are, this is part of their deficiency cost as well. Okay? Other than that, that's TID 5. Happy to answer any questions.
On the water, I remember that when the Foxconn was being planned, and the water we were supposed to, the capacity was,
5.8 million gallons of water a
I
day.
think it was, I heard number 7 million gallons, something like that. It was at the hearing that they had, so 5.1. So how much are we using right now?
Oh, right now, we're using very little.
Very
I mean, I'm not gonna, I mean,
Okay, but the
it's-
capacity is.
oh, the capacity is huge. It
Is
is 5.8 million gallons of water today.
5.8 million.
No question about that. They
Okay.
can produce that today, can have that availability today.
Mhm.
Are they using that? No, they're not using a fraction of that.
Of course
I mean,
not.
let's just be honest.
On your page 110, proceed from debt, $25 million, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, this is our last borrowing. Remember, we did the borrowing this year, right? The 20 million or whatever, that's part of that. That's part of that borrowing, correct, Mike?
Oh, I see, okay,
Yeah.
okay, that's the
Yeah,
bottom.
that's to do the water project that we're
Right.
still the last ones that we're doing. So that's part of that money.
Are we collecting enough taxes to pay for all the bonds and all the bonds?
Yeah, and great question.
Because up to now, everyone who asks me,
Yeah.
I'm saying, I'm not concerned, so I want to hear from you that
No, and
we
we,
still are
yeah,
being covered.
we're working on the questions that we received from the former, whatever you want to call that was held earlier. So we'll have those ready for you hopefully in a week or so. But listen, there is no impact of this TID 5 to the Village of Mount Pleasant residents. It is totally being funded by Foxconn and their increment. And again, remember, 1/1/23, their value or makeup payment goes from whatever it is today to 1.4 billion. They are fully committed to that number yet. They understand that it's due. They understand it's coming. So that payment, again, it's not due until 24, but the value goes up to 1.4 billion, which covers everything we have out there, folks, plus. So the village and the residents, there is no impact from TID 5 on any of your residents, period.
Like I said, that's exactly what I tell
Yeah.
my constituent, anyone who asks me,
Yeah.
but I wanted to be reassured as of
Yep.
today that that's still, thank you.
And again, their taxes continue to keep on going up. Like I said, we estimate about $10 million this year. And they're still making the special assessment payments, which are the land that's not even on here, because it's really just a pass-through from us to the county, because the county's the one that borrowed that. So, again, from a financial standpoint, the village is fine. Foxconn is making all of their financial commitments, no question about that.
And
And
that,
continue to.
that reassurance has to continue to go out because it's something that not everybody understands.
Yeah.
They see that there isn't as much development out there as was proposed, and the question is always, well, how does that impact me as a taxpayer?
Yeah.
and it doesn't.
Does not, folks. Again, all of our payments are set up that way. We paid interest for a number of years, so some of those payments start coming through this year, but the taxes that we're collecting right now will cover those payments, folks. And when the bigger ones hit where it's principal and interest, that's when the makeup payment is paid. So those don't happen until 24 and 25. So, again, you are more than covered and secured.
Claude, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
The first line there, the tax increment.
Yeah.
So is that basically what they're paying, what they paid in property taxes?
Yes, last year was 9.2 million, this year will be, and this is TID 5, so again, they were the only ones last year, so we bumped it up because Ashley's out there, that's the north area, or TID Area 4, so there'll be some increment on them as well as Endeavor this year. So it won't be full because they're not done, but there'll be a partial taxes on those properties as well, so that's why it went up a little bit as well. There's nothing really changed. Foxconn doing some minor, again, one of the things they had to do for the 868 was to enclose those chillers that they put outside as a temporary basis. So they're enclosing that, so theirs will go up a little bit, but not much. The main increase there, quite frankly, is the north area, or Area 4. Okay?
But
So-
it should be understood that the north area is plus,
No question, the north area was never planned for zero.
right?
Zero development.
Right, it's plus development that really doesn't have any impact on what's going on in
Does
Area
not.
1.
Does not.
Getting back to the
Correct.
Foxconn assessments and taxes that have to be paid.
Yep, exactly. Again, anything in Area
Still
2,
part
3,
of
or the
TID
north
5.
area.
Oh, yeah. It's,
Yes.
it's plus business.
Still part of TID 5, it's the Area 4, the north area we call it.
So you're-
Anything that's north of Highway 11, and it actually meets up to, I believe it's TID 1. I think we butt at the industrial park that comes the other way off of 20. We butt right up to that.
So the proposed, your proposed estimate is $10 million
Yes.
in
For-
taxes coming in.
Correct, in TID 5, that's correct.
So I have a question
Yep.
on this, and this, being that I wasn't here from the beginning of this, and it's more of a curiosity, but what is the difference when you look at the overall land that Foxconn is on in, the taxes brought in from what we're getting now to what we were getting prior on that land for the village?
Oh, it's over, so whenever you form a TID, you have what's called the base value. And remember, all that, 90% of that land was just farmland. So quite frankly, there's zero taxes on it from the state standpoint. So whatever you received, whatever the village, the county, the school district, everybody received prior to 2017 when we formed the TID, they still get that money. That money's still there. Then, a TID is formed, and then any improvements over that base value, which is what we're showing here, is that $10 million. So over the base value already, we're collecting, in our projection this year, is $10 million in taxes over the base value. Okay? I don't know if that answers your question for you, but every TID has a base value.
Well, I think that the base value itself was only about 10 million all day.
I don't have that number off
And-
the top of my head. It
and
wasn't
then-
much.
And then Foxconn has added 500 million, to that base level, that's the increment. And they will be charged going forward as if it's 1.4 billion.
And that's just for Area 1, folks,
Right.
remember. That's just Area 1, okay?
Now, is any of that gonna be able to reduce property taxes in the rest of the village at some point, or no?
I think at some point, when the debt's paid off, okay, a TID is the only economic tool you have as a village. Let's just be honest, that's it. So once this TID is paid off and our debt's paid off and you close the TID, again, whenever you close that TID, whatever value you have in there, that's your boost when that TID gets closed.
Okay.
Because now all of that increment comes onto your general account, okay? Oh, and again, this one is very unique. Again, it's the only one in the state of Wisconsin. It's a 30-year TID, the only one that has that. Has some very unique features to it when it comes to public safety, as well as our neighbors, Racine. So again, we are currently funding 6 officers, police officers, are funded out of here. We are currently funding just some stuff for the fire. I think this year it's roughly $130,000. I remember what the exact number was. And again, once we had planned in here to do a new firehouse somewhere out there, which we already had the land for that we purchased, now I think it's been 2 years ago. So when and if we need that firehouse, and we have 15 years from 2017, 15 years in, to build that firehouse, that'll totally be funded from TID 5, as well as the firemen and fire staff that are in there, fire personnel, I shouldn't say men, that are in there, that'll be also funded through TID 5, okay, for the life of this TID. As same thing with officers, and again, we obviously are in contact, you know, Mike and Maureen and I with Matt as well as Chief on their needs and things like that. So once the need becomes where that they need to build a new firehouse, again, we already own the land, and at that point in time, then we'll have to ramp up for the employees, so. Again, I'm just asked the chief, and he's been very cooperative, just wait till I get the makeup payments coming in for me, and then we have the money to do all those things as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a very unique, and we also, we fund $100,000 for the bus transit system. We give Racine $150,000 for their police and fire protection. We also cover their deficiency payments as well as their rec fee payments, which again, all of that money comes back to the village, the rec fee and the makeup payment come back to the village once we accumulate a base value, which we already have, quite frankly. So the village is actually getting money back now from Racine on the makeup payment. And the rec fees, we'll keep on collecting those until we get our money back. And rec fee is for water. Every home is one rec fee. A business, it is determined about how much your water use is. Then Racine County tells you how many rec fees those are. So again, what the village did as part of this TID, the rec fees used to be $3,600 or $3,600 some odd dollars per rec fee. We dropped that down to $500. And again, and the TID 5 is paying for that and covering that. So again, it's another benefit, quite frankly, to your residents. We're paying $3,600 a rec fee. So all the new homes that you see around here, they would have been paying $3,600 a rec fee.
That's not just Mount Pleasant, it's also Sturtevant.
Yeah, it's the
City
whole
of Racine,
Racine.
everybody.
Water utility. Yeah, Sturtevant, Mount Pleasant, Caledonia, yes, as well as Racine.
So that is a fee that the builder or the homeowner has
Oh,
to build.
trust me, the homeowner's the one
when it
that saves
first-
that, because you're gonna pay for it. Absolutely. So all the houses you see, all the development we've had over here with Vanguard and wherever else, those all save tremendous amount of dollars because of TID 5.
So, and it's that much per home?
Yes. Per rec fee, it's one rec fee. It used to be $3,600 and some odd dollars. Now it's $500.
Budget TID 5.
Sorry. I didn't
When
mean
is
to take
this
up your time.
supposed to close?
I'm sorry.
When are we supposed to close TID 5?
2047,
Oh,
30 years.
I'll put that on my calendar.
So Denise, yeah.
We'll be old.
Yeah, write that one down, right?
Well, and just as a general comment, that's very true about any TID district. They're long-range planning, they are meant to benefit the taxpayer for particularly at the end of their life.
Yeah, exactly.
And at that point, then, you know, we hope that by joining those properties, whatever TID they're in, into the tax rolls, they benefit the taxpayer even more. For now, they provide funding though, well,
This one's
six,
very unique. None other TID you can't do that with.
right, TID 5 is very unique. So will it continue to provide those 6 police officers
Yes.
through the life
Yes.
of the TID plan?
Yes.
Okay,
As well as, again, when we have to build that new firehouse,
yeah,
pay for the firehouse, not to mention house, or, take care of the personnel.
That's all thanks to the enabling legislation.
Exactly. I mean, we fought very hard for that, folks, because again, going back to the original plan would have been a huge impact on this community that you could have never absorbed. You
no,
just
we
couldn't
wouldn't have been able to, right.
So without that, you wouldn't. Okay?
Okay, thanks, Clyde.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Claude.
Let's bring up the fire department.
Easy.
Clyde. So Claude said some nice things about you, Chief, so maybe we should just keep paying this forward, because we'll have police here before too long, and then they're up.
So you want me to say something nice about Claude or about the police department? Okay, I guess, thank you for allowing us to talk about our budget. I guess I'm gonna start on page 43, is that?
Page
where-
43, yeah.
Our Fund 100, which is really our operating budget. I'm just gonna kind of highlight the changes because really we had minimal changes in our budget. In the operating budget, under salary and benefits, the primary change, it's up 3.98%. And it's basically, well, there's a 2% increase in salary wages next year in the labor agreement. We had, I think, 6 or 7 employees this year that were on the single insurance plan that went to the family plan for next year. And one firefighter that was not on the plan at all, he was covered by military, and he's going to a family plan next year. So that was almost $100,000 in the change in health insurance there. And that's primarily it for the salary and benefits. Under the actual operating budget, you'll notice it's 3.99%. And the increase from the 2022 adopted budget to the 2023 proposed is $31,400 increase. That's it.
Yeah,
And it's everything's going up. I talked about that last week at the meeting with the municipalities, but I think I think we continue to try and spend our dollars very wisely. We look at how we do things, how we operate, and fuel costs are going up, and EMS supplies are going up, and everything is increasing, utility bills and whatnot. But I think that we're just gonna try and do the best we can to hit that number, and we realize that everyone's got financial problems, and our budget and the village budget is no different. And we need to control it as much as we could, and I think that's what we tried to do. So any questions under the Fund 100?
Chief, we did a rate increase, ambulance rate increase last year that took effect this year, I think. And just for those here, even though you may raise the price, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna collect more. And so what's your crystal ball for how we're gonna finish out the year?
I did not set the village president up to ask me that question, but I do have the answer. What we have is proposed is increasing the budget revenue next year, not a lot, but we're proposing, and I'll come to the board in the next month or two to get approval, but to increase the ambulance fees $100 across the board for residents and non-residents. I don't think we'll make the same mistake we did last time. We're just gonna go with the approval of the Mount Pleasant Village Board, and the position we took basically was Village of Mount Pleasant's a fiscal agent, and Sturtevant approved the budget as presented, and this was part of that proposal in the budget. And so we plan on coming to the board with a proposal to increase the ambulance fees, along with our fire inspection fees, which are way out of whack. And I'll talk more about those when I come to the board about that too.
When
Well,
you
thank
say-
you for asking that question.
when you say way out of whack, you mean too low?
Yeah, they are, right.
They're
I
very
think the
low.
highest fire inspection fee we receive is, I don't remember exactly, it's like $550. And we have about between 30 and 40 occupancies, large commercial occupancies that we no longer can send an engine company or an ambulance out there to do the inspection. You send someone to Johnson Wax, SC Johnson, it might take 2 or 3 days to go through that building. And we're getting $550. And I've looked at what City of Waukesha has and others, and the fee probably should be more like $1,200 or $1,300 for a complex that large.
Oh, I would say,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we'll come to the board with some proposals to increase those fees. Any questions about Fund 100 then?
No, go ahead. So you're gonna go to
Well,
capital?
the next one is page 44, which is our revenue. And I think the only changes there basically are, we added a little bit more to the ambulance fees. Sturtevant's fees went up about 5.43%. But their share of the actual budget it went up just under 3%. And then they had a 0.5% increase in the formula this year because of the number of calls, and their equalized value went up like ours did. So their share went from, I remember, I don't have that in front of me, went up to 18.53, I think is what it's at, going to be next year. And then we increased the fire sprinkler permit fees, and that kind of comes and goes. We kind of, so next year we put $160,000. And then for the capital, you can see what we have there, but it's another command vehicle. We're having problems getting vehicles. This would be another Tahoe. I think we may have missed the window to order a 23, so we won't be able to order this till next summer, and it'll probably be at 24 when it comes. We budget every year for capital outlay for radios. The heart monitors are, I think, the 5th year of the 5-year lease. And then we have, I'm gonna look at this here, the capital IT equipment, which we fund for every year. I'm gonna go back and look at that. Heart monitors and then IT equipment, the command vehicle, the utility vehicle on the top is a pickup. We ordered a pickup in this year's budget. We actually gave them a verbal order in November once the budget was approved. And we did get a VIN number a couple months ago, but right now, as far as we know, the vehicle's in somewhere and sitting in the parking lot waiting for chips. And we don't know when we're gonna get it yet. Every year we budget for station equipment for Station 8 and 9 and 7. And then Station 10 repairs, we budget every year for that. This year we replaced some of the flooring in Station 10. And then we found out that Caledonia didn't budget their half, so we'll bill them after the first of the year. We're used to it, so it's not a problem. We budgeted next year to remount two more ambulances. We have 2 remounts in this year's budget. The chassis were ordered back in November, and we had communications with the vendor, Foster Coach, last week. They have no idea. Their supplier's out of Olaf, Kansas, big Ford dealer out there. The window's only about 60 more days, and they still don't have a VIN number, so we don't know if we're gonna get those chassis this year or not, and we'll have to order 2 more for next year. Sean Foster said they have 175 new ambulances sold or ready to orders for remounts. And right now, in the next 60 days, they're gonna get 6 chassis in. That's it. And it's going on everywhere in the whole industry, so.
Do they get those chassis from Ford,
Yeah.
directly from Ford?
That's still down at Sterling?
Pardon?
Is it still down at Sterling
Oh,
where
yeah,
they're being
yeah.
done?
Yep.
Okay.
But they get their chassis out of Olaf Ford in Kansas City is where they get them from. And it's all bought under the federal contract and things like that. Next year, we budget $32,000 for personal protective clothing. This year, we had $25,000, but the prices went up about 20%. So what was gonna cost us, I think, $2,200 will now be about $2,800 next year. We have the service plan for the heart monitors, which we have to budget for the next 3 years. And then we probably look at probably 26 is when we look at replacing the heart monitors again on another 5-year lease that we currently have right now. We're looking at $20,000 to put new alerting systems in stations 7, 8, and 9, and then another $7,000 to put it in Station 10, which would be shared with Caledonia. But our alerting systems in the stations are old technology. We need to bring it up to date. And the other thing that, with the old type of alerting systems, think about what it's like. You're sleeping at 2 o'clock in the morning, dead sleep, and all of a sudden that alarm goes off. And you're just sudden like that all the time. And there's new types of alarm where it kind of starts to alert you and then kind of wakes you up a little at a time. And it's a little bit easier on the heart and things like that. So we're looking at newer technology, putting those in stations. And I think that's pretty much it then for capital. So the capital, there's 15,000 for station, 15.5 for Station 10 repairs, and then the 7,000 for Station 10 alerting system. So half of that would be repaid from Caledonia. We did look at, we remember last year we bought, instead of replacing engine 9, we bought the Foxconn engine with the funds because the village didn't have it.
Right.
So we still need to replace engine 9, but we can wait a little bit, but we don't want to wear out the Foxconn engine before we get a station. So we did back in June, we went and got prices on the 2 engines we ordered, I think 3 years ago now. They were about $600,000 without equipment. And the price we got in June was $720,000 without equipment, and the price is gonna be good for 30 days. So those 720,000 vehicles this year probably will be 850 or more next year, probably. Everything's going up.
Crazy.
So, any questions on revenue or the capital?
No?
The next page I have is page 68, the impact fees. And finance kind of puts this together and has a better idea of what we collect and what the projections are. The funds are being used to pay back the loan for the Station 8 addition, which is coming along and should be completed by, they said 6 months, but probably earlier than that. So we're thinking, actually I thought about the end of October, but they're running, the doors are on back orders for inside the dorm rooms and that. So it's probably going to be December before it's completed completely.
Between Mike and Bob, for trustee Doxey's edification, because he's new to this is his first budget hearing, would you explain impact fees and how those are arrived at and how they're collected?
Yeah, impact fees are for new developments that come in, and it's part of the deal with doing business and bringing in these developments, whether it be residential houses or commercial developments. There's a schedule that we go by, and there's a number of different impact fees, fire being one of them. And we have what's called an impact fee study that was approved by the board, and it kind of lays out the plan as far as what's allowed to be spent. In addition to that, I believe the sunset is 7 years to spend all the money, or else you're going to be in a situation where you have to rebate that. So never want to be in that situation. I would like to point out that we did have a transfer out capital project on page 68 of 120. I'm going to make that number 0 rather than the 110,000 for 2023 proposed, just because the capital account is all kind of laid out, and I think that'll give our fire chief kind of the opportunity in the following years to figure out what to do with that. So just wanted to point that out. That will be one change that I noticed that we will be making.
So you have to keep track of, let's see, so you get the fire impact fees every year, but the money that comes in in a given year has to be spent within 7 years.
Yep.
And
How do you
on,
keep track of that?
aren't the projects somewhat specific too?
They
You
are.
have to spend them on?
They are. And we have a pretty good understanding to make sure we get the money transferred out into our capital fund. It's never even really been close to staying in there for 7 years.
Okay.
So no,
Usually it means-
We have a reason to.
try
spend
to
it.
we try to allocate it pretty
Usually it
quickly.
translates into some kind of brick and mortar project, because just getting back to impact fees, the thought of the impact fee is that if you build a new house, it is going to have some kind of incremental, albeit small, some kind of incremental impact on police and fire protection, because you're adding another structure to the village.
It can't be used for operational costs.
Right.
So it has to be used only for the capital, the roads and everything, or not? Or
Pretty much brick and mortar, no vehicles or operating costs, anything like that.
Right.
It's kind of limited.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, very
That's why
limited.
we do have to be very mindful
Right.
of using them and finding the appropriate projects to use them on, because within each department, those impact fees are limited as to how they can be spent.
Right.
And I think on the new study that was completed and approved by the board, our impact fees actually, I think, went down because we didn't have a lot of brick and mortar in the future, other than the station at TID 5, but TID 5 is gonna fund that. So, any questions on the impact fees? The next page I have is 87, which is the Station 10 that we share with Caledonia. It really doesn't change much from year to year. I think next year we fund a total of $27,000, and we project the revenue to be that same.
And that's in a different budget just because it's shared with Caledonia,
right,
that was why.
right. Rather interesting partnership out there sometimes, because they, you know, we budgeted, the village budget for the roof replacement this year, 2 years ago, and they didn't have any money. And then COVID came, we couldn't do it, and then pretty soon they're yapping, when are you gonna replace the roof? When are you gonna replace the roof? Well, you guys wouldn't fund it for 2 years. You know, and this year the roof was replaced, so when's it gonna be done? When's it gonna be done? You know, and the same thing, you know, so then we say, we're gonna replace the floor, well, we don't have any money. You know, like, we're gonna replace the floor, and Mike said we could bill him after the first year, so. We try and, in the 9 years I've been here, I think we've done a lot to Station 10 to make sure that it doesn't fall apart, and we've replaced flooring, we've done painting out there, remodeled the kitchen, the roof and the soffits and the gutters have all been replaced. So, we had to put air conditioning out there, so we try and do as much as we can on an annual basis to maintain it. So
Yeah.
it doesn't, you don't wanna end up with 1 year, all of a sudden you got $100,000 in repairs,
Yeah.
because you didn't plan ahead, you know, so we try and,
And you do need Caledonia's cooperation. You can't replace a half of an air conditioner
Right.
any more than you can replace a half of a floor.
right.
Doesn't make sense.
So that's Station 10 budget. The next budget I have would be page 88, public safety donations. And all I can say is everybody likes police more than fire, because
They have dogs. They have dogs, chief.
we don't project much any donations anymore. We're projecting $250, you know, so. We just spend it wisely. We didn't spend any this year, you know. And we do have a fund balance, but we're very careful. It's been a while, actually, since I think we'd spent anything out of that fund balance, you know. We just kind of, if there's something we need for the station, for the people, and that, we do that. But other than that, we just kind of forget about it. And I think that's it. What I have is page 92, but it's the same property tax and revenue and all that again. Any questions?
Yeah, Chief, I have a question on the houses on the Sorensen Road. Are we still putting anybody into there as they come in for training or anything?
No, we're not. Well, we found out, he's talking about the farm, I call it the farm, where we had the interns live there last year. We
Yeah.
started with 4. About a week after we started, we lost, well, a month after we started, we lost 1. And then one of the students wasn't successful in passing paramedic class, so she moved out. And then we had 2 left, and then pretty soon they kind of moved to Union Grove because they were answering more calls out there. So this year we have some interns, but we decided not to put them in the house. And actually, I talked to Maureen and to Chris about a week ago, or 2 weeks ago maybe, coming to the village board and what we'd really like to do, because it does cost money to keep that house heated. We've repaired broken water, and there was a lot of, that house is not in need of a lot of repairs. And when you got a vacant house, the repairs never go away. So what we'd like to do is come to the board if we need to, and really just get permission to kind of close that place down, and we'll do what we need to do to make sure it's not totally damaged, but we'd like to use it for training. We wouldn't do any burning or fire, type of use of the building, but we could use it for search and rescue and that. We've had law enforcement ask about using it and that, and I just don't see, we're not in a position to be renters out there, and to be honest with you, I don't know that you'd collect enough rent out there to pay for all the upkeep of that,
It's a big house.
And it's a big house, and it costs a lot of money to heat it. And, that's why we'd prefer to just kind of shut it down for use of a house, and just let us use it for training and leave it like that.
I think you'll have to keep any heat on for the pipes, because that's a boiler heat.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that, and we'll work with HVAC people and just do a minimum and shut down the water as much as we can too, things like that.
No, it sounded like a good idea. I mean, I think it was a good idea to
Yeah.
have the interns there, but, you know.
And
I
we're
can
we're
see
going
it's
through, right
hard
now,
to
we're going
find
through the
somebody.
insurance service ISO rating again, a review for the fire department ranking. When we were last ranked, we were a class 3. We're probably we were less than 1 point away from a class 2 fire department. And one of the big things is training, having a training facility available. You know, and Gateway's got the one in Kansasville, but now there's something wrong with it, can't burn it any longer. The inside has been damaged and can't burn. So it's something we certainly need to look at, and it does affect our insurance rating. So we'll, you know, we've had that idea on the board for a while. I don't think Gateway's ever gonna come through with it, being a partner in a training program, to be honest with you. So we'll look at that and come back to the board in the future.
Okay.
Interesting.
I think the other thing, just to say, and that is to say thank you to the board, and I've been doing this a long time, budgets for a long time, and the last, I wanna say 3 or 4 years, it's probably the best budget process I've been involved with, because it's not painful whatsoever. I mean, I'm not even talking about getting here, it's before we get here that we've got really good people working on the budget, they work well, it's not difficult at all to do the budget, and that makes a big difference as a department head. And I think the other thing is, thank the board and both boards. We, as a department, we look at what we have, and compared to other departments, we're pretty lucky, we really are. But we're also make sure that we spend our money wisely, and there's not much we go without if we need it. There's a lot of things we go without that we'd like to have, and I'm the first one to say, I don't know if I said this about a week ago to somebody, I don't know if I'd be spending this money if it was my own money. You know, and they kind of get the idea. You know, so we thank you for all your support in that sense.
Thank you and all your staff and firefighters and EMPs and everything too.
And that sounded like a compliment to Mike and Myra and
Well, it
the
is,
administrative
yeah.
staff.
It is.
Yeah.
We've got the recorder on, isn't we?
So we do appreciate all the support.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
You want me to say something good about the police department before they start?
I'm gonna pass around these bags before.
Got energy bars coming around.
Just keep passing them around.
In keeping with the theme today of paying it forward, you have to say something nice about the people that are coming up after you, which in that case will be the assessor. And, you know, good luck there.
There's more.
Page 39.
Welcome, please. That's where it started. It's come full
We've gotta
circle.
go to Rom yet. Rom's the last one.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, we're a couple minutes early, but, so Captain Stroop and I worked on this budget together. We'll both have some input, but he's gonna start off kind of going through, with the explanations on various items, and we'll go from there.
So we're starting at page 39.
Yes.
All right, at the top of page 39, the first section has to do with contractual labor wage.
So basically, as you know, we're going through our negotiations now with our officers union. So these top items, that'll be, you know, in accordance to whatever the agreed, whatever we settle on with the agreement, so.
Alright.
Oh, so those aren't final then?
No.
They're just, okay.
Still in negotiation.
So when do you anticipate those negotiations being wrapped up?
We've met 3 times thus far. There's another meeting scheduled in end of October.
Oh, so it's after our budget period. So if their negotiations end up higher, okay.
I got it covered, yeah.
And then do we renegotiate police contracts every year?
No, it's the settled term. So you've seen 3 4-year contracts.
Okay, so that's what we would be anticipating. We'd be locked in once this one's finished for
Right.
3 to 4 years?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, if we move to the bottom of the page, there's an increase in the building maintenance. We have some painting projects, some chair replacement from the original, inventory when the building was built, just kind of showing its age, mainly in our training room where the outside agencies, public are in, just wear and tear and, just kind of improve the atmosphere in those areas. Moving down to equipment maintenance contracted, we see the increase there. We're running we've got arbitrary body cameras 3 years ago. Our service agreement runs out in May of next year. This increase of $23,000 is to accommodate for another 2-year extension onto that service agreement. Within that service, it gives you the updates and software, the publishing ability, so we can do open records requests and send video electronically instead of the time it would take to burn disks, which we were doing before. In addition to helping IT with the storage and the latest, greatest, versions that they have, so that we can run it efficiently on our side. That 2-year agreement will take us out to roughly where they anticipate the end of life being for those body cameras. So that will take us to an evaluation period to see where we are as far as technology. It's changing every year, it advances, the generations are constantly coming out, so that kind of lines us up with where we are product-wise, so that we can evaluate what the market shows. So that increase is to accommodate for that 2-year extension on the service agreement.
And you said that was the body cameras?
Yeah,
Okay.
so our arbitrary body cameras. The last line, the 9,000, 9,000, would be the contract services. We have an increase of $18,000 on that line to purchase flock cameras. This is a stationary plate reader. Serves a similar function to the Alpers units we've bought in previous years, which are mobile. They're attached to our squad cars, driving around. These would be stationary items, 6 in total cameras. The manufacturer has given us a cost of $2,500 per camera, with a $350 one-time fee that would for installation, setup, that sort of thing. In the system, technology is advancing and increasing. The city of Racine is looking at installing about 30 of these cameras around their city. County is also looking at a similar number, generally on off-ramps, highways, because what we found is most crime, a vehicle is associated at some point in time, and collecting that live data, helps our agency, helps other agencies. Flock has a nationwide system of data sharing. So if you want to search a vehicle by roof rack and color and all these different components, they can narrow down all the data collected nationwide into those searches. And we found great success with our Alpers units, which are the mobile on top of the cars. And we would anticipate the similar success with the stationary ones in the high volume, high traffic areas, leading in and out of the village. And I think with the shared use of this system amongst the other agencies, I mean, the availability and reference to what you're looking for would come in quite handy.
Is it also used for, like, giving speeding tickets to people?
No.
Or
No.
it's not for that, it's more for crime?
Yep, data collection. It reads the plate, stores the time, location, that sort of thing. So if we're looking for, a black Suburban that's, left the area of Walmart at this time, and it now all of a sudden starts triggering the cameras, you can kind of almost follow it around town, once all of these cameras
Just
are in
like the
place.
TV shows.
Mhm.
And this is under contracted services
Yes.
because it's, we're not buying them, we're buying the service to provide this, or?
Yeah, so it's a lease program. The company only offers the lease option. You can't buy it outright for your own. And they do all the service, the maintenance, repair. So if it goes down, you call them, they're gonna be contracting out with local services to get it up and running again.
So these mobile cameras that you're referring to are plate readers?
Yes. The ones we currently own.
Right, and we started with a plate reader program, what, about 4 or 5 years ago now? We've been just kind of, edging into them as budget affords us. So is the goal to have all the squads with this technology at some point, or, how are you long-term planning that?
Roughly now, we have, usually on average, 1 to 2, if not more, of what we have in stock out on the road all the time, just through squad assignments. With Flock, we can get 6 stationary cameras, roughly for the same price of one of the mobile cameras. So we're trying to expand the reach, through the stationary ones.
Just to reiterate, the flock are stationary, so they're fixed. They won't be installed in a squad, like the other ones that we purchased in the past.
Where will they be mounted?
Yeah, that's to be determined. Yeah, so that, like David said, the county and city is looking to purchase these same cameras. So usually you put them in your busiest areas where you get the most amount of traffic. Yep.
We're assuming that you have these areas identified, and we're not going to ask where they are.
So is that an annual cost
Yes.
per? Are they multi-directional or one-directional?
They're hard mounted, right? So
Yeah,
they
they're-
just
So the
point
ones
it-
that are hard mounted,
Yeah.
the presumption is you do it at an intersection. Are they gonna hit the full intersection or just north, south, and east, west, or something like that?
They're in a fixed direction, kind of a 180 forward, but with the fisheye, they're a little bit narrower. But they're
Okay.
gonna catch anything reflective within its scope. So if it's facing this way, it's gonna, kind of catch everything coming in this direction.
Okay, so you can still, if it's facing north, you can still catch east, west,
Mhm.
possibly on it.
Yes.
Okay.
So, in other words, if you would put one in a corner here, you're gonna catch this whole room, just because of how wide the fisheye is.
Interesting.
We can't tell.
Okay, carry on.
All right, I think we're moving to page 40. All right. We have an increase in dues and subscriptions, increase in a few managers, Y-League, in addition to the constant subscriptions and membership fees that we have on a yearly basis to different professional organizations. The crime prevention, there's been talk, obviously, most departments in the nation are experiencing recruiting challenges and keeping up with, some of the national trends and some of the things that other departments have had success with is coming up with promotional recruitment videos on your agency in that kind of that Twitter timeframe, those short little bursts. So a lot of officers in the department are excited about these. They're coming up with ideas and different angles, and they've been reaching out to a couple local producers, if you will, that do this professionally. And they gave us a lot of interest, a lot of ideas, a lot of exposure, so we're kind of looking at, producing those type of short recruitment type videos to put out into the social media, expand your reach, and hopefully draw in more applicants for our hiring process. We do have an increase in the ammunition line item. We're looking to transition, currently we have 40 and 45 caliber handguns. We're looking to transition out of the 40s into a 9mm. Numerous studies nationwide, bigger departments on the officer's accuracy, comfort, confidence in a 9mm opposed to a 40, opposed to a 45. And the numbers are significantly higher for 9 to 40. So looking to kind of mirror that. Lieutenant Geyer's been taking a sampling of officers throughout the entire day, all 3 shifts, taking them out to the range, running them through a 9mm course of fire opposed to the, a 40 or 45, and has gotten real positive feedback. The accuracy has certainly improved. He put out an interest email. I think he got 16 instant replies to I'll switch, if we do that. So in making that transition or that switch, we do have to buy 9mm ammunition, start phasing out the 40 ammunition that we purchased. But then in making that initial purchase for training and for outfitting officers with the duty ammunition.
Wouldn't you have to have new guns too, or?
Yes.
Oh,
9mm
So-
ammo is cheaper too.
Yep, in the long run, save on ammo. They have the place where we order our handguns from, they have an excellent trade-in program. So when we trade in, say, our used 40 caliber for a 9mm, it's either $140 or $150 by the time you trade in your gun. For some reason, our used handguns are quite valuable to people on the outside. So,
You take good care of them.
well, they are.
No, I
They're
mean-
maintained. Yeah.
So there's nothing in this budget that speaks to, or where in this budget, I should say, does it speak to the purchase of the new guns, the 9s? Is it a line item on here, or are you just,
If we have an issue, in the past, if a handgun has failed, or we had to purchase a couple new ones because we had 2 additional officers, in the past, we have purchased those out of the ammunition line item. But now, with this change over to 9, obviously that's gonna be a little bit tighter. But like I said, we do get a pretty good, pretty generous amount for the trades, which is very beneficial for
Yeah.
us.
Okay.
cool.
Have you guys done any kind of study on the effectiveness of the 9mm? Or,
Yeah, Lieutenant Geyer has done a bunch of different things. So one of the big things is we have some people with smaller hands. When they shoot the 40 or 45 versus the 9, he's already had several people out on the range and back-to-back new targets, different guns, and with the 9, they're, for whatever reason, they're much more accurate. Just there's less recoil. It's just easier to shoot. That and combined with that FBI study, I know this has gone back and forth. Some people, are completely for the 45. Some are for the 9. Some are somewhere in between. But that's why we're offering both. And whatever we can be more accurate with is going to be better for that officer.
It's the age-old argument of light and fast versus slow and heavy.
Yeah. Well,
it
Yeah.
is the military has transitioned from, they went to the 9mm Beretta way back in the 90s, and then they transitioned back recently to a larger caliber because of the ineffectiveness of the 9. And so, and
in
I'm
the
talking
Army,
about
I
the other end
can
of it.
see.
Yeah.
In the Army, I could see that.
Different.
and maybe whatever application there, but when we look at the new FBI study, that shows somewhat of the opposite in law enforcement. But the big thing from the 80s, when all the departments left the 9 to go to 40 or 45, now the technology and the advancement of the bullets, the ammunition,
Okay.
is what's making that 9 more desirable again. So,
Oh, okay, I know what you're talking about.
Moving on to page, where are we at, 41. We'll go down to laptop computers for patrol vehicles. Once again, we continue to phase out of our Panasonic Toughbook inventory. The CF31s are no longer produced, no longer serviced, can't find parts. The modems are becoming outdated, so we're continuing to move to the GTAC tablets, which, of course, need different setup, different hardware, different mounting equipment in the squad cars. Each GTAC tablet is roughly about $4,100 with the setup. Obviously, with costs and prices these days, today's numbers might be different in a month. So we're roughly trying to go for about 5 tablets this year. IT has encouraged us to start moving away from the tough books, just simply because of parts and service. And getting all of the all of our squad cameras on one platform. One way of updating software is just more efficiency on the maintenance side of the equation. New squad cars, with the total we have there, we're looking to replace 4 squad cars next year. The struggle we're running into, of course, is availability. Last year we had ordered Chargers. A month later, those orders were canceled. Tahoes were canceled from the get-go in that fleet capacity. So Explorers are what's available, consistently available to us right now. Those roughly.
So did you say you got all the ones that you had ordered from last year? Have they been delivered yet?
2 have been delivered. One was, I think, built last week. And then one was built about 3 weeks ago and is in transit, it shows. So we should have, I would hope, by the end of October, we should have the remaining 2 from last year's purchase. It was one of those where the build dates kept moving further and further out.
Right.
So we got an email last week saying one's in transit, one's being built, so we should have them by October. Switching over from a Charger and Tahoe dominant fleet to an Explorer fleet, nothing fits. You know, from push bars to light bars to cages to back seats to center consoles. It's all different for the Explorers. So what we're finding is in our company we use for setup is roughly charging up about $11,000 in addition to the cost of the Chargers, which is just around 39, or the Explorers, excuse me, about 39,000. So with incidentals and you know, unknown costs when the cars are produced and when they get here, that's what we're estimating towards. So
the 210 for 4 squads is outfitted inclusive?
Yeah.
Filled out?
Yep.
Are you gonna, do those charge, because a couple of the Chargers were unmarked, weren't they?
Mm-hmm.
So, because they kind of are more of a regular car, blend into the traffic patterns and so forth, are we gonna miss having that type of vehicle?
What we've done when we can is to put that unmarked car, so the Explorer, so our current 111 is an unmarked car. It's an Explorer set up to go to patrol, minus the cage and that sort of thing. So when we do push it in, it'll swap out, you know, equipment that way. So we are still replacing those unmarked cars. The Chargers we've pulled all the Chargers. They're set up for this equipment package and put them into the fleet. Also with manufacturers, they change the body styles all the time, which then changes the equipment inside. So, you know, we try to put together as much as we can through the setup companies to put the marks into the fleet as we rotate them in. So try to use the equipment as long as we can.
Those Chargers are stealthy though, you know, you don't see them coming up and then, then I'm like, oh, that's the police, okay, I'll slow down now.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of flirting with the Charger, you know, I'll slow down now.
Yep.
What do you guys, when you decommission a squad, what happens to the equipment that's in that? Are you able to sell it to another department, or is it just thrown away?
It's generally, we use as much as we can. We take everything out. We talk to our service company. We talk to the maintenance. What can we pull everything out of? You know, most departments are in the same boat we are when they switch body styles. You know, we have cages and back seats and for this particular model, and everyone had to switch. So Havey, which is our installation company, they do the best. So they're like, hey, we have a department that's looking for 3 light bars. Can we sell them? Can we work out a deal to, you know, take off the bill? We can exchange it. We've purchased used light bars from them, that same capacity, on some of our older equipment that isn't serviced anymore and isn't ready to be replaced. So
Okay, cool. So you guys are using
Yeah.
or recycling some of that?
yeah, so when we reach out to Havey, you know, take everything out of here, put it into here. They give us a list of what won't work anymore, and then, can you do anything with this? They put the word out, and then we definitely make every effort to maximize what we're switching to cars.
Okay.
Interesting.
All Gas masks. Several years back, we had made a similar capital purchase to outfit our civil disturbance team with gas masks. Through our accreditation process with Y-League, it's best standard to outfit every officer with a gas mask. So through this, through the 19,000, we'd be looking to outfit the remainder of the department with the same style of gas mask as our civil disturbance team. They have the same gas mask as our neighboring agencies, so that if we are forced into a situation where we have to use them, now we can start doing some resource sharing and, through cartridges and communications and so forth. So we're looking just to outfit the remainder of the department. Being a gas mask, it's specific to your face when it's sized and tested. So to share that amongst, officers, when you put it on, it may not be working for you for sharing. So we'd like to issue it to each officer and then continue as an issue to new officers as they, come into the force, that they would be issued their own. Arbitrator squad cameras. With the advancement of technology, and comes another generation of squad cameras. Latest, greatest, works the best with their software. So the 14,000 would get us 2 camera systems, which would ultimately replace our oldest ones, which are not anywhere near the generation that these are now, where they don't download. Very time consuming for Officer Swart to go and download these cameras on a weekly basis, because they don't have that ability to offload themselves. So we're looking to replace those.
Well, these are the cameras that are on the dashboard or whatever, they're
Yep.
forward facing, not to
Forward
be
facing.
confused with the aforementioned plate readers.
Yes.
And these are the ones that activate then as soon as you hit your lights.
Yep. We run on about 10 triggers on each car. So 10 different actions that the car or the officer is doing will trigger those cameras to turn on, also trigger their body cameras to turn on. So we want to keep that up to date and current and moving forward.
Do they ever plan on slowing down some of this IT upgrades? Because we're just, the
I
money.
hope so.
See it back there.
Justin's back there shaking his head.
Yeah,
But,
I don't see it
when
happening.
we spend so much money, buying new things, it's like our cell phones, right? I mean, Apple finally has kind of slowed down on, you can still get your standard Apple phone, then they have the upgraded ones, but you don't have to buy a new one all the time. And it's just frustrating. I mean,
Yeah.
to try and run a budget, when you're chasing your equipment, just trying to make sure it functions and it talks to everybody and, anyway, that was a rhetorical question, I suppose.
Well, last year they got a brand-new drone that I won in Green Bay. Is there anything you want this year?
That time of the year again.
The last item is scheduling software. We have $40,000 for this. We're currently using Excel to manage our 56-man department in a essentially pencil and paper kind of format. We're getting to the point with the complexity of overtime and hours and maximums, and that's where we need to kind of join the modern age and get into a software program that will reduce our time dramatically and how much time we spend on a week scheduling, myself doing payroll, officer, Sergeant Vaccaro doing the scheduling, forcing out overtime. So we're looking for a program that's app-based, that the cops will be able to use from their phones to request, comp time, vacation time, sick time. The program will automatically kind of encompass all of that, and then, either tell them they can or they can't. And then at the point, we'd go in and review that, in fact, they could or they couldn't.
Because otherwise it's a phone call or an email and you
Yes.
got that chase going on.
So on a daily basis, we're spending, a lot of time, roughly, I spend probably 4 hours a week myself just doing, between scheduling, improving, payroll, that sort of thing. Sergeant Vaccaro doing his weekly updating of forced overtimes and keeping that own Excel sheet up to date and going. In addition to our clerks, running through the payroll, making sure everything's, second, third look and accuracy. Just to make sure that everything is dialed in. So we're looking to improve that, to modernize that. The number we're basing it off of is probably the Cadillac of the scheduling world. It's used by, Unified uses it, Oak Creek Police Department uses it. It's all encompassing. They build it out to your needs. We're also looking at 3 or 4 other manufacturers to try them out to see. So we kind of want to start with Cadillac and then see where we fit in, you know, as which program is going to benefit us the best, which platform and so forth. So
How
we
many
wanted to start with
employees,
Cadillac.
how many employees are in the police department?
So sworn, we have 54 currently. We're authorized for 56. Civilian, 10. So we'd be able to incorporate them into one platform is the goal.
Mhm.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine doing all that by hand. I mean, you know,
I don't know if, hopefully your eyes are better than mine, but like, this is our month of July. Each color is a different code and everybody's badge number, and it's a mess.
Oh.
It is. And then this is our civilian one, which is a little bit cleaner. But when we looked at how many hours a week we spend, we have 5 different people, 14 hours a week, and when you added up just their regular hourly salaries, it was just under $32,000 a year. Now, when David mentions the $40,000 for the Cadillac software, basically we're throwing out that number. We don't want to throw out $25,000 for software and then we come back and say, well, it was 34. So obviously we're going to check out several different ones with IT's help, and you know, if we can get something cheaper that fits our needs, certainly that'll be the way we go.
I think that's something that Trustee Ram says time and again, use technology to, you know, fix these kinds of problems, and then it's a dividend that pays forever going forward.
Actually, I'm very surprised that what you're doing right now. I expected that 10 years ago, upgraded. My question to you is, like you said, you could have budgeted 25, whatever, no. I'd like you to go to the state of the art so that you have the latest. My question is, do you know the neighboring police departments, Caledonia, Racine, or the county, what they're using, and if so, is there any economies of scale, everyone buying?
Bundling.
You looked into some other agency, right?
So they all use a different one, and they all love their own.
Shocking.
Of those, all of theirs are on our list to run through and to go.
You believe what you want to buy meets your need
Mhm.
and is the best. And because it was an issue, I didn't ask the question. What about the fire? Everyone should have the state-of-the-art technology. I mean,
What about what, fire?
yeah. They probably are doing the same thing, entering by spreadsheet or maybe, you know, okay, everyone has advanced from the napkins to Excel, but
Go ahead, Mike.
Fire does have something called CrewSense, which I believe is on the list for you
Yes.
guys to look at, so it'd be nice if we could have that intermingle and work together, as well as with our ERP system, Springbrook. So,
it's not only that you got the economy of scale, but like again, if the fire department has the same one you have, it helps with the training also, you know, the upgrade.
Mhm.
So I would highly encourage that at least both these departments within Mount Pleasant,
Hmm.
you coordinate with each other. I'm all for that.
The program Fire uses does have an LE build-out, so certainly on the list to look at as far as, you know, having one platform that can be upgraded together, and licensing together, and, you know, if we can build it out that way.
Yeah, something to consider.
Absolutely.
Okay, is
I-
there more?
I would like to note one housekeeping item, the next item, the TID 5 capital at the bottom of page 41. Police squad cars for $27,166. That's actually police equipment. So we will make that change. I just wanted to note it on the record so we're all on the same page.
Take a pen and just scratch it. I took care of it just like that.
Okay.
I looked at that, Mike and I thought that they're buying four squad car.
Yeah, that would be
Maybe 100.
about a half of one, yeah.
1.5.
Maybe a police
Take the front
moped.
half. All right, looks like we're moving to page 49.
Yep.
We're done. This would be the contract with the Racine Communication Center. It's a decrease by 10%. We're on the tail end of this contract, so each year it'll be decreasing by 10% through 2029. Or then,
And is then what? Then it's part of the county's
Then it's part of the county.
responsibility?
Right.
yep.
You have kind of a similar thing going on with
The
Health Department, yeah.
Nice to see numbers going down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but then the county portion of the taxes will go up.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's no free lunch.
there's no free lunch, yeah. But at least it'll be off our budget.
Page 67.
I can speak to this one. Again, this is impact fees now to do with the police department. And we do have a study that was adopted, which lays out exactly what this money needs to be spent on. And right now, it's just building up. And then eventually, there is a planned spending for it. I forget specifically what it was. I don't know if you wanted to speak to that, Chief? As far as the,
Spending plan?
yeah.
I believe when we talked, it had to do with either a training facility, maybe possibly sometime in the future. I mean, that's obviously a few years out, but anything to increase the amount we can train and the safety in our training we're 100% for that.
Page 85. So for 2023, the state BOTS grants, which are the traffic enforcement grants, will be, we're once again targeted for OWI, seatbelt, and speed enforcement. Mount Pleasant will continue to administer the Eastern Task Force grants for City of Racine, Sturtevant, Mount Pleasant, Caledonia, and Wind Point. We're targeted for 100,000, which they increased by 5 from 95. For OWI, 65,000 for seatbelt, and speed is 30,000. Of that, each department has a share, which they feel is appropriate to their capacity, and it'll be divvied out as such.
So if you look on the bottom of the page, last 4 digits 3750, just an example. Grants other than seatbelt. So that shows 45,000. So the amount we take in up top, again, like David said, we are facilitating that grant for all the other agencies. We're doing it for the county. Actually, David handles that. And so when we take in that 95 and then whatever amount goes out on the bottom, that remaining amount is what we're using here for our grant, that our officers are going out there working the overtime and the state reimburses us. Now, what we've found in the past, I would say 4 to 5 years, is there's been a change in the workforce. We've had to lower the amount we take from the state because we have a lot of our newer officers are valuing time off and not always working overtime. And so that's, it's a constant shift back and forth with how we facilitate these grants, how much money we take from the state. If you take X amount, they expect you to use up that amount instead of giving it back. So we constantly adjust depending on how much overtime people want to work, are willing to work, therefore, so.
So do you apply for these grants, or are they just automatically given, or do you request a certain amount then, I guess?
So the BOTS, which is Bureau of Traffic Safety, they'll reach out to each agency or each task force through their equation, and through their numbers, and they'll ask you to apply for the funds. There's a little bit of back and forth based on your fatal accidents, your injury accidents, accidents related around speed, number of violations that occur within your area. They have a community map section which basically uses a lot of math to kind of predict where your accidents are going to occur. They use it in intersection improvement designs sort of thing as well. And they reach out to you to kind of figure out where you would like to apply for based on the need. And that's when I say when targeting, they come up with, based on your needs, what you should be targeted for based on their funding.
But if people don't want to work that much overtime, you might not be able to spend it all. Interesting.
Okay.
280, page 88. So for revenue, for police revenue, 5120, we have the $30,000, 29 of which would be the Mrs. Myers Reading Room grant that's run out of our COP house. And then we anticipate another $1,000 from there. And then for the donation gun range below that, with 13,000, the city of Racine pays us 11,000 each year to come out and train at the department. The remaining 2,000 is the use of other agencies within the county, whether it be Waterford, Sturtevant, Caledonia, that come down and use the range.
That's a lot of donation money.
We can,
It seems like a lot more than what it actually is. We have one large grant for the Miss Myers Reading Room that comes from SEJ. We take it in and we give it right back to the Mrs. Myers Reading Room, and that's over $20,000. So
Where is the gun range?
Here.
Here.
Please, sir.
Oh, inside? I mean, well, I guess it would be inside.
Yeah, anytime you want to take a look, we're more than happy to show you.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Have you seen the
I want a 9mm.
stand up if you haven't seen ours? We've got other people too that need to see the range too.
Can we bring our guns? Oh, I mean, if you're going to a gun range, can you bring your guns?
Hey,
well,
I think it's
I
restricted.
got almost voted out because I wanted that range.
we do have a Citizens Academy too, which several of the board members here have been and
Yes, indeed.
participated in. And at the end of this session, one of our last weekends is the range, where we take you out to the range and you walk through with our instructors and use the firearms that we use and train in similar ways that we train to use those. So you're more than welcome to join us.
Oh, is it?
Just do one.
We have one currently going. We're in week 5. So
Okay, I saw it on Facebook, I think.
yep. So we just did our driving 2 weekends ago, and tomorrow they're going to be doing some of our defense and arrest tactics, which is always a good
Maybe if you're nice to the police department, they'll let you tag along for that night.
Just on a side note, a couple years back before COVID, my wife was in our Citizens Academy class, but she refused to shoot the guns in the range, so she didn't do that part.
You can take her slot for that.
Yep. Anytime.
Okay, any questions for, please? Go ahead, Rob.
Chief and Captain, back to the grant. Do you have anyone who specializes in grant writing? Because there's so much money out there for the grant. You have to have, I know that most of the entities, they have a full-time staff, which is full-time job is to grant, because it's very competitive, but there's a lot of money out there, so I'm just curious, who spent the time to write grant application? I hope it's not the police officers.
It would be us, it would be command staff. So what we do is we do send certain command staff members to grant writing schools that they have. They have various ones in Milwaukee, Kenosha.
Yeah, but every time a police officer is spending writing the grant, that's a time away from the public.
You are absolutely right.
So
Well, it wouldn't be an officer on the road, it would be a command staff member. So usually it's lieutenants, captains, sometimes depending on what it is, it might be a sergeant, but they're busy with the road as well. So usually it's lieutenants, captains.
have you looked at what's the cost to have a grant writing specialist? And my guess is the number of grant that you'll increase will pay for that, and plus it will, relieve your officers to do the job, the real policing work. I'm very serious about that, because that's the way, being on many other boards, I know that there's so much money being spent, but you have to compete. So I would hope that at least for the next year or so, that you look into that. And maybe Maureen.
Yeah, we actually had a training session with the National League of Cities.
Yeah.
We had a department head meeting where we have access to a grant writer in Milwaukee. So we'll see where we end up.
Yeah.
I think if given a choice, though, I think that the command staff would like additional resources put into police.
Absolutely. It's worth looking into that.
But yep,
The Public Works Department is pretty successful in getting grants too, in the stormwater and sewer and all that.
yes, Lindsay, the deputy
Mhm.
director, is very good grant writing.
Uh,
And
I was gonna say, she writes her own.
Yeah. If I can, again, we had the National League of Cities come in and make a presentation to all of the department head. There are actually, as part of those grant programs, they are now putting money into people that will come in and help you write the grant. So that's actually on the front end of the money that's been allocated by Congress. So it's a lot easier than it used to be in the past.
Are there any final questions for police?
Did we miss donations to the K-9 unit? I thought I saw that. I know last year there were donations to the K-9 unit, I thought.
Yeah, it's in here.
Did I miss it? I thought I saw it under the fire department's discussion.
Maybe it's just
Well,
under
those are just the hot,
donations, police.
things that the dogs.
There we go, okay. I heard, Chief Stedman was talking about the process, how it is now, and I couldn't agree, any more. You look back years ago at how this whole process went, nothing like it is now. Much better, much more efficient, so it's a kudos to all of you and everybody in here.
Oh.
Much better, much more efficient than we used to do it, so thank you.
Make a comment here. I think in the past, I remember when, not you, but previous, heads of the department, came and wanted 2 or 3, 4 squad cars and stuff, and somebody said, well, how many miles on them? Well, we've got 120. Oh, I get my car's 200,000. What they forget is if you put 120,000 miles, all the hours, because they don't get shut off when they go to in service or anything like that at all, and people didn't understand that. So that's something that we had to fight for, just to educate other former members of the board.
They probably have the AAA membership. You go on squad car, $200,000, they call AAA.
Yeah,
I want to say too, from my point of view, that I think that this process is working well, because I'm learning a lot about what you guys do besides, when I think about a policeman, I think about somebody giving me a ticket, a speeding ticket. Usually. But,
They still do that.
so, all of the other things that you have to do as the command staff that, I had no thought of. So this has been a very educational experience for me to just sit here and go through all these pages. So thank you.
Chief, how many officers, sworn people, are we short?
2, and we have interviews on Wednesday,
Okay.
so we're hoping that,
So then you'll
We
be
can-
full, back up to
Yep.
full, okay.
correct, yep.
Okay, I would propose that we take about a 5-10 minute break, and then we'll go to the assessor. We're back in session, and we have the assessor in the hot seat. You got a green light?
There we go. I think most of you remember we extended my contract earlier this year. That really is the only change to our budget this year is that line item. So if there's any questions, I'm all ears, but hopefully this is one of your easier ones of the day.
Yes.
Everybody wants to know where their assessment is gonna be, but that's got nothing to do with the budget.
Well,
Different question, isn't it?
yeah. Obviously, assessments went up on average about 12–13% this year, so it'd be up to y'all as to where that lands us with the tax rate and all those good things, but I think.
So we'll have to have longer people who, when they come in to challenge those, we sit here and, review those?
I hope not, but one in kind of related to that, though, I am adding another staff person here this year in another month or so. Just because of the amount of development and growth we have going on here, it's getting a little more difficult for Brenda and myself to manage it, so we're gonna bring another person on and get her trained up and out in the field here shortly, so we're excited to have that.
Dan, are the assessment going up in neighboring communities, or, Caledonia, Stuttgart, and everyone, or just Mount Pleasant?
No, they're all going up
Because the reason is,
significantly.
as we all know, that's the biggest complaint we have every year, for the
Right.
last, 3-4 years in a row, 10, 12, 14% increase. So even though Maureen in introduction says that we expect the mill rate to go down 4–5%, but the assessment going up 12–14%.
Yeah.
That hurts.
Department of Revenue just released a report on the overall property values for the entire state, and they have gone up on average a little over 13.5% statewide. So, some communities in Dane County saw them go up 15%, some further up north were a little less than that. But we're, I think, right in line with what is typical for the state.
And I can speak to this personally. I'm in Pleasant Prairie. We haven't had a new assessment done on my home since, I think, 3 years ago, and now it went up 32%. So,
Yes, and I will also share, this year, my son was looking for a property in Burlington, and I called to Claude and I talked to his son, who is a real estate agent. I don't want to hold it, but but it is with respect to assessment. This property was listed at $1 million and the assessed value was $250,000.
What?
And I couldn't understand that. And they say because they haven't increased they haven't reviewed their assessment in I don't know how many years.
Yeah, it's been 7 or 8 years there.
So that means if that property gets sold for $1 million, the new buyer will be taxed at $1 million.
Yep.
So my question to you as assessor is, can you get away with not assessing the properties every year Mike says, or?
Yeah, legally, we can not reassess for, your level of assessment must be within plus or minus 10% of full market value. So if our assessments are at 92%, you're legal. Once you fall below that 90 or above 110, then you have 5 years to do a reassessment. So, yes, we could hold off and do reassessments every 4 or 5 years, but then you end up like Mike, where you're gonna have 40 and 50% increases, and that causes way more
Heartburn.
havoc
Right.
than doing, because in a normal market, where you have property values going up, down 2, 3, maybe 5%, people get their assessment notice and generally they throw it in the circular file. Oh yeah, my value went up, my value went down a couple, who cares? It's because of the extreme market that we've had the last few years, where values are going up 10, 12, 15% a year. That's what's driving, I think, so many of the appeals that we've had.
But now, of course, the forecast is by next year and now.
Well, I'll
if
say
that
that,
is the peak, then.
yeah,
it will be
I think,
better.
Brenda and I talked about this morning. We downloaded all of our sales from the last couple of weeks, and we think we're kind of at a peak right now. Some of the sales that are coming in now are even a little below our assessment, which hasn't happened in years. So I don't think we're gonna see 10% assessment increases this year. We'll see what it'll end up being, but I don't think we're gonna see the numbers that we've seen the past 3-4 years. Well, condos have been the biggest driver because they took such a bath in 2008, and they've come back unbelievably strong now. But even the single-family market is just, until the last probably 2 months, was just insane.
But getting back to your budget, apart from the contract increase, you're just kind of keep on keeping on.
Yeah, everything's pretty stable.
And your additional employee is out of your, you pay for that.
Correct, it's out of this.
Okay, any further questions for Mr. McHugh?
None for me.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, page 20.
I'd like to thank the trustees for being kind to the assessor. The next batter up is Clerk-Treasurer, Ms. Stephanie.
Ooh, with the high chair. Lee. Yes, I was here early.
We aren't doing well on the time, huh?
23.
Yeah.
I have my own page. I'll use this one.
I can start off on this one because, as you can see, there's a pretty significant decrease. And this is going to be the first of quite a number of funds that you'll see that we more evenly distributed amongst not only our TIDs but utilities, because obviously Stephanie's department, a number of other departments, we have our hands in all of the different types of funds, not just the general fund. So again, this is the first of quite a bit that you'll see that looks like this, and I just don't want you to think there's a typo or anything. It's just kind of moving forward a reasonableness to this. And, Maureen and I had learned kind of the best practices at some of our conferences that we've been to. We've run this by Todd. So I want to point that out right now, and then there will be more of this that you'll see later on, just so we're all kind of tracking here. And I just want to make sure you don't think that there's some type of typo, because it's not.
Is there?
I read that, I didn't think it was a typo, I thought Stephanie has volunteered to take a
Stephanie has cut all the heads.
Volunteered to do that.
I didn't
Cut all the heads.
She wants to make
Let's be clear. No, it's not.
Stephanie is not going to be working for $20,000 less. That $20,000, as Mike mentioned, is getting allocated to different cost centers.
And is there any disadvantage to doing that or?
I mean, it's kind of something that we deem to be appropriate. So I wouldn't say that there's a disadvantage as much as it is just doing the more appropriate thing and charging the different buckets of money for what the reality of what's going on.
Right.
It's appropriate because we literally know how much time we spend on the various TIDs, and there's a lot of staff time that's been spent on TIDs and the utility with all of the waste in people's basement. I mean, you've all spent a lot of time. Think about your agendas and what's dominating your agendas. What would be the downside is if we were like some of our neighbors where our TIDs were not as successful as they should be. So it is one of those things that we're constantly looking at each and every year.
And I was just thinking, I had to 2,057 or whatever.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, for example, if all of the TIDs closed, then you would have to be back in the operating budget, but by that time, hopefully the property taxes, we'd be getting more money because of the TIDs property taxes going into the operating funds.
We have one that's about to be closing soon, so, and you'll see a pretty significant drop in the rate when that happens.
Hmm.
So what we're doing now just simply makes sense when that's gonna happen. And this is, I mean this in the very kindest way, this is the drop in the bucket compared to what actually is coming in and out of those TIDs. We'll demonstrate that tomorrow night when we discuss more of them.
Incidentally, does the Springbook software that we have help you, allocate and track how staff is spending their time going across the TIDs and the other, the utilities and whatnot?
We have a percentage that we plug in, and based on that distribution, that's where it gets charged out to.
So there still is 100%. All you're allocating in
Right.
Fund 100 is
Right.
just, there's still 100%, so the Fund 100 is taking X portion of that, and some of the utilities are, and then the TIFs. But
Yep.
yeah, so,
Nobody's having their pay cut.
correct. I didn't think they were. I mean, it's still 100%. That's the
Right.
bottom line, is we still have the same money we're spending, it's just allocated.
It's in there. It's baked in the cake.
Yep.
Okay.
Other than that, there's really not a lot of change on the clerk side, unless you have a question.
Can you elaborate on these couple of expenses under operating? What's the contract? Clerk-Treasurer contract and Clerk-Treasurer animal services, what are those? Or
Yeah, our contract.
Middle of the bottom.
Right. I gave list, do you have the list that I gave you before? I think it's got, hold on, the animal services on some line. I forget what it's made up of, Rom, right off the top of my head. I think we can pull it up. There's like five different things,
Is that right?
that come out of there, like, I wanna say weights and measures is one of them. When the state, we have to contract with the state to go to, they go in and service the weigh machines, like in the grocery stores, or if you're weighing something, and scanning things, they go and spot check, and that's about $6,000 a year, that
Oh, wow, and we have to pay for that.
We pay for that, but then we turn around and bill
We do get
those
revenue
that
back,
were
okay.
inspected. So that's part of that.
So then, here we document what we pay, but when we bill them, that should be coming in at some other place as a revenue. Right?
Yeah, we
what about
recoup it.
What about the animal?
Animal,
Services.
that's the Humane Society contract. We have to
Okay.
contract them every year, with them every year.
For what?
Stray dogs and cats.
Pardon me?
Stray dogs and cats. They said it was like $30 a day per animal, times however many animals they catch in the village. And then, so every year it fluctuates, so.
So if they catch the animals in the village, they're stray dogs.
Well, they should be licensed, and that's why they know where they, or where they pick them up from.
But don't they bill that to the owner?
Well, if they're strays, you
Not
don't
the
know who
Humane
the owner
Society,
is.
that we have a contract for them to pick the dogs up.
And house them, but I don't know if the Humane Society charges them that's on their end,
So
if
village
there's a
amount-
fee,
They have
but.
to-
Village of
charge them a
Mount Pleasant
pickup fee,
have-
I'm sure.
Village of
Maybe.
Mount Pleasant have so many stray dogs that it costs us $14,000. Wow,
Yeah,
that's a lot of money.
yeah, I know,
I would have expected maybe a few
Yeah.
dogs here and there.
Well, you can see how it's fluctuated over the years.
No, I'm looking at.
We had
the-
a substantial drop, actually, from
No, from
Well, it
From
used to be like
2020.
18 down to 14. If you look in 2020, it was as high as 21,000. I just got a notice today that it's coming in at 20,000 again. So actually, the 14 is inaccurate.
There's a lot of dogs out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and we just
Okay.
got this number recently, so this will be a change that we'll make in your book. Just kind of a heads up, that 14,200 will be more,
I'm just surprised. That's
or
all.
$20,000. And I do have a breakdown of the 17,000. 5,200 for weights and measures, 10,000 for Racine County tax bill printing,
That's right.
and then just kind of miscellaneous other stuff. So that's the gist of it.
Yeah.
These are all lovely state laws. That's what they are. We're responsible for stray dogs and cats and anything else
I do
someone brings
understand
in.
that, but like I said, I
There's some
just-
quirky laws that are out there. If a cemetery should go unmanaged by, after 5 years, it becomes our responsibility. There's we're like the last resort for many of these services.
Okay, let's move on to elections.
So I believe, as we stated, last year and the year before, Maureen suggested that we keep our elections at the same base rate every year, so. As we all know, some years there's two elections, sometimes there's 4, could be more. But it all washes out if you stay at a constant state of, like, we have 80,000. So it pays for the poll workers, it, can pay for, training and different equipments and things like that. We do have our last round of Badger books to be purchased this next year under capital. We should have all we need then. Our poll workers loved them. We rolled them out in August. And what I say, we had 26, 24, something like that, and they just loved them. They just thought they were great. So it helped us out in reconciling the election. It helped us out mistake-wise. They just gravitated towards them, and some people who have, didn't like the process before, they didn't want to flip through the book and look for names and stuff like that. They were so excited to go on a touchpad and find people's names. They're like, I'm doing this all day, and it was great.
So now you don't have to use those 2 books where
Correct.
they used to have to come in and there'd be one person.
Right.
So does it save you personnel as
Oh,
well?
I'm telling you, the check-in process was so fast that we're now backed up on booths.
Oh,
So there were people waiting to get in a booth,
okay.
which is usually the reverse. There were people waiting
Sure.
to check in. So we're gonna use all of our booths that we have. I honestly, since I've been here, because they're stored all over the village, I don't even know how many booths we have. So I asked our DPW guys to
Round them up?
round them all up, tell me how many we have, get them all out for the next election, put them all up. See how many we have. So we may have to buy some new ones because, they've been around for
A long
years
time.
at least, so. I don't know what condition they're all in, but yeah.
So for the Badger books, before you used to have, 2 sets of books, and then the one person had to verify that the other one had the same address and
Right.
and ballot number and all that. Do you still use 2 Badger books?
No.
So
One
it's
book.
so it's just one person, and then the cross check to that is another poll worker that's issuing the ballot.
No,
You can
there's
have
no
less poll
cross-check for,
workers?
checking in anymore. It's not necessary with the Badger book. The Badger book actually spits out the number for them, so there's no need to have, everybody working off the same pad. It's just, they work off of their own Badger book, and the Badger books talk to each other, and they know which next number is up.
Okay.
So
So my follow-up then would be the contract services, is that the Badger books and/or the voting machines?
Yeah, we have to have them serviced. They have to be.
So it's both?
Yeah, managed, and the company in Minnesota comes out and tests them and maintains them, and we
Okay.
have to contract that.
Ron had something.
My main question is, even number of years, we have the November election. And if I look at the number 2020, 2022, and I'm just going to go, to make it short, total expense is 111,130, but odd number 2021, which is not a congressional election or a presidential 44. So next year is not a November election, so why are we budgeting the same as this year?
Well, because we have an intern also that we're paying for out of elections. She's gonna help us and has been helping us,
No, but that's for this election.
right?
I
No, I'm saying
think-
2023 budget should be more like 2021 budget because it's a non-election year except for the municipal elections.
Yeah, but we didn't have an intern coming out of that money. We have an intern we're paying for.
Okay, let me just rephrase my question.
Well, no, I think I know where you're going, but I think Maureen and Stephanie answered that earlier. They want to have a level budget for every year. In some cases, it's going to be lower because there's fewer elections. In some cases, it's going to be a little higher. But it all will kind of balance out in the wash, unless you have either a special election that wasn't planned or a primary that wasn't planned.
And the costs keep going up, so we had the postage increase right in the middle of August, and, we didn't know that was happening. I'm sure they're gonna have more postage increases. The stock itself keeps going up. The costs keep rising.
No, the cost will rising, but again, common sense is that in the non-election year, you expect lower budget.
I can kind of speak to this. Typically, for 2022 and earlier, we didn't have a part-time election worker. So for 2023 moving forward, this is kind of an additional person to help out with the elections that hasn't really been a part of that before. And it's to help things run more smoothly, and, it's kind of, I think it's good, it's been working out well. I think that's the biggest thing, is there's been kind of a personnel change because there's now a part-time person in addition to all of the election workers in the past.
Yeah, and keep in mind that, with since the last presidential, turnout for every election has been increased substantially, and that's a lot of staff time, that's, bringing in extra poll workers to do things, whether it be a heavy election year, a 4-year or a 2-year. Going forward, we're gonna need a lot of, people to help us, get organized, and with all, changes in laws and things like that. We have to redo all of our training materials, we have to redo all of our election manuals and things like that. I mean, there's just an ongoing amount of.
And is that intern that you've hired, is she helping you to do those very
Yeah.
things then?
Yep,
So
and
that
sometimes
you and
we
Jill
have to
don't
bring
have
in
to
poll
do
workers,
everything?
right,
Okay.
sometimes we just do, cause we just don't have, the time, especially when we run up, like now, we're gonna run up with the November election, at the same time, we're trying to get taxes out, so, there's just we just need a lot of hands, so.
And will that intern help you with taxes too? Or
She can, yes.
she could, it's
Yeah.
just
She kinda like.
primarily for the
does
election?
yeah, right, yeah. We mostly task her with election things, but hey, if you gotta grab, somebody to do something, you do.
You have something?
No, from what I'm hearing, you're just adding, income to the budget that wasn't there before, so that's why there's the
Salary.
increase in salary.
Her salary.
Yeah, salary, yes, and the raising costs of,
Is that gonna be permanent? Is there always gonna be an intern or somebody now in that role?
we're hoping so. We begged actually for a part-time person, but we'll settle with the intern at this moment, so.
Well, and I think I do understand a little bit about Rom's concern, because, you have in 2020 budgeted 65,000, and the actual, or the 2020 actual was 65,000. I don't know what you budgeted that year. 2021 actual, and then 2022 goes up to 80,000, of which year to date, we've only used 20,000. So I think, Ram, are you looking for a different number, a better compromise,
I'm
or
trying to
are you
understand because
satisfied as to the?
Forget about his salaries and everything, you just look at the total department expenses line. Every even number here, the number should be higher because we have November election. Every odd number, just like here in 2021, it was 44,000. And I do understand you're adding people, like training, but what I heard is.
Changed dramatically for the clerk's office. It's almost a full-time constant. There
No.
used to be ebbs and flows.
But, okay.
It no longer is.
Okay, so now, and I do understand that. So if that's the case, then when 2024 budget come, we should not see that then big increase. It should be almost within the, correct? Is what you're saying?
I mean, we're hoping it will stay consistent. I know, having been here almost 10 years now and have been through some of these budgets. Let me finish. So, when we used to do okay, this year it's gonna be a slow year, it's 2 elections, maybe 1, and we're gonna budget $20,000. Then the next year it's a 4-year election, and now we need to budget the 80. Most of you were not on the board at that time, but John, you probably remember, it was always a fight. It's like, I can't get that money back, and then I have to drop it back down, and then I have to drop it back up, and it was very frustrating. And now with all those changes in the elections, it's like, if we can just keep it constant, then I'm not worried about, hey, this year, okay, you're gonna be short. Now you gotta scramble and find this money somewhere because now you have increased your absentees by, I don't know.
Stephanie, also, there was an increase, I think, in poll workers.
Well, we did increase their pay.
Their pay.
Because poll workers are dropping off left and right, and they always complain about their pay. I did bump up the churches because I think, honestly, even $200 is like nothing. Because they give up their facility for the day, there's a lot of wear and tear, people coming in and out, so we pay them $200 every time there's an election, and that's we have 6 polling places, obviously we don't pay ourselves, but, that's an expense. DPW's time and everything, it's just so much better for our election process to keep us level.
Right, I mean,
It doesn't mean you have to spend
we-
80,000.
we get it that, the wages ebb and flow, depending upon what the election cycles are. But I think what you're trying to get to is that if you have a level amount every year, in lean years, you're not gonna spend that amount, and I think the idea is that you can carry that over maybe into the next year, where you won't have to ask for higher budget and get out of that cycle.
That I understood, that's why I asked. So, I already asked, so that means for 2024, we would not see a big increase. And I didn't hear a yes, I just said,
I can't predict into the future, but we're anticipating keeping everything,
Yeah.
level as we
Yeah.
have, so.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not questioning the additional cost, I was just
Yep.
wondering where the difference between.
Before we brought this particular departmental budget to you, we had I wouldn't call it a disagreement, but a healthy debate about whether or not to create another a part-time administrative assistant. But we're kind of lucky, we have Carthage College locally, and we've gotten really lucky with pulling interns out of Carthage. That elections are kind of cool right now, so the college kids really do enjoy coming in and working with Stephanie and learning about elections. So we've kind of used that to our advantage. But,
Anything else for Clerk-Treasurer?
it is what it is.
All right,
Cool.
let's
Thanks,
go.
Stephanie.
Stephanie?
Let's go wake up Carrie back there.
Yeah, Stephanie?
Mike and Carrie.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not gonna talk about elections. Just in case you guys are thinking about it, I'm not doing it.
It could be interesting.
You would be confused quickly. I'll tell you that much. I have no idea where I am. You?
We're going on page 116.
The Tourism Commission.
I can speak briefly as far as what exactly this fund is. It's 8% tax that we collect from all of the lodging locations in the village of Mount Pleasant. So as you can see, that top number, that 1.25 million that we have budgeted for 2023, the public accommodation taxes line, that's going to be the 8% as a whole. Now, if you track down and go to the expense side, under the contracted services, that's actually 25% that goes to the general fund, the operating budget, if you will, for the village of Mount Pleasant. So, you know, take the 1.25, subtract out the 325. What remains is basically what makes up this fund and kind of goes along with the operating budget for itself. So just a quick overview.
Could you repeat that? So the 125, I mean, the 1,250,000 is what you project for room taxes?
Yep, that's the 8% that we collect from all of the lodging locations in Mount Pleasant.
And then the 325,000, what is that?
You know, I misspoke. It's actually the 312,500 called general fund room tax. So what happens is that gets transferred into the general fund, the operating fund, Fund 100, which you'll.
That's 25%.
That's the 25% that we.
The operating.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's transferred to, it's on some other page
Yep.
where it gets transferred
I think
in.
page, 11? Revenue page. We'll get to that page and I'll point it out when we go there.
Thank you.
Mike, back on the revenue, what were for 2021 and 2022 proceed from the debt, $5 million? What was that?
That was the potential for the bonding for the Veterans Conference Center that we were looking at doing.
Okay, so we budgeted for that, but we never used that.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it's not that we didn't use it, we never borrowed.
Yeah, we never borrow. Yeah, it's what I'm sorry, but you're right.
Yes, don't want to leave an impression that we have $5
No, no.
million.
When I say I never use, in my mind was we never borrowed it.
Right.
Carrie would figure out a way.
That was
$5 million.
exciting, yeah.
Yeah, she would be
That's
thrilled
meeting
saying
my
we have
life
$5 million.
today. No. Other than that, does anyone have any questions? It's weird to look at tourism just as a budget because it's different than your funds in other classes and categories.
And unlike the other budgets, this is really driven by the Tourism Commission members. It's where Trustee Clausen has superpowers here that you will. It's really up to that Tourism Commission how to allocate the funds, but we included it as a budget so that you would be aware of how it's being spent. It's really not up to the village board, it's up to the Tourism Commission how to allocate those tourism dollars.
Right, even though this is shown in our books, it's actually kind of off the books because it's a separate entity, like the utilities are, and, so the utilities revenue comes in from a different direction, and they have to spend it on utilities type stuff. In this case.
She has her cape on tonight.
Yes.
She's got her green superpowers cape on.
In this case, the tourism room tax comes in, and of the 8% room tax, a quarter of that, 25% of the 8, goes to the general fund, and the rest of that is used in pursuit of tourism type activities, of which the Tourism Commission is the arbiter of where that money goes and how.
I have a question. When we have allocated some of these funds outside into different activities. What kind of a reaction do you get from those people? Are they surprised? Are they shocked? Are they saying thank you, or they want more, or all the above?
Well, they have to apply, right? Mostly they're happy.
Oh, yes, absolutely. They're really happy.
It's something
Surprised,
that
though.
they
You
don't
are
expect.
Yes,
Yeah.
completely. Because all of it is through an application process. You know, if you have an event or you have something that you want to spend tourism money on, you have to apply. I review the application, I take it to the commission, we discuss it there, and then it's either, you know, awarded or denied. Very rarely is it denied, because I think the people that are looking for these kinds of funds know what we should spend them on. So, but that is not to be said that there aren't some who apply and say, I have no idea if you'll even consider this because I'm in Waterford or I'm in Burlington or Racine, and we don't care. If it's a good event, you're probably gonna stay in our hotels and we're gonna make money. So,
And it goes anywhere from $1,000 up to, you know, half our budget, 25,000.
Well, I think it's great, the fact that it is, because for one thing, a lot of the people who come and kind of create that with, you know, paying for stuff, come from all over the county to a position, and then it's gonna go back out to those communities.
My guess is they are happy, but they also know that for the next year event, they know where to go.
yep.
They're gonna budget that.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. It's nice now that we have a year under our belt with my being here, that I feel like we can accurately plan a little bit better. When I met with Mike to talk about this, he was like, do you see anything that's really outrageous that we need to adjust? And I said, I don't think so. It's nice to have this money that you're getting from visitors and turning right back around and spending it on visitors and residents, because residents come to events too. Sure.
Another advantage to our tourism commission, and I think you know this, Carrie certainly has experienced this, there's a lot more transparency to how the money is now being spent. The meetings are public, the public can attend, the meetings are noticed, and there is accountability for how that money is spent. You have to prove, you know, I'm looking at you, I should look at them. You have to prove that your event can result in heads and beds.
And other than Carrie's salary, there's really very little overhead.
And it looks like, Carrie, under the special events, you've done the same thing that Stephanie was talking about. You've got a line item of 125,000, but it's, for want of a better word, it's a placeholder number. You're testing it, you're building it up. This is only your first year, so you'll see what you need of it. And, you know, for 2022, you didn't use it all, so far.
Right. That's exactly right. We didn't know. It's really hard to predict, too, how many people are going to apply. I think next year we'll have more applications because we're more well-known now.
They're getting known.
You know, people are talking about it. The other thing, too, is that our communications, you know, Lisa and Megan are doing a really good job of getting the word out, and we're seeing increases in just, like, visitor traffic, people going to the website. All those things are going to probably relate, you know, become more people requesting funds at some point.
Which of course means I have to talk about Carrie for just a minute. She has an excellent background in social media before she did tourism. So we're really lucky to have her as a member of the team. And I think you're seeing that. Even your agendas are looking very different if you looked at that agenda tonight. So Carrie, before she went into tourism, she was doing social media for Boston Store. So I'm not talking just the one Boston, the whole corporate. So she's quite talented, and we're lucky to have her.
She's
a good,
she's
positive
another
attitude.
great member of the team.
Really, honestly.
Are there,
It's really, it's very fun. I don't know if anyone else says that during their budget workshop, but I think my job is super fun. And it's been nothing but amazing for a year. There hasn't been a single moment where it's been anything but that.
are there any secret events that you're working on that you can spill the beans on?
Secret?
No, I don't, no. There's some things that have been discussed a little bit, but we're getting there.
Good.
It's also really nice too that we're branching out in the event world where people know now we can host these events. We can maybe things that we weren't considered for last time, or previously, we are now. So, I do think that our advertising this year will increase. We're gonna do a little bit more getting out in the CVB world, the travel, the destination world, and see where that goes.
I hear that the League of Municipalities might be doing some things where they'll need some room nights.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard that too. I think we might get them. We might get that event.
I have two more questions. Yes, the room tax we collect, 25% goes to the general fund and the rest has to be spent on the tourism, correct?
Yep.
So this 188,000 transfer to debt service, what is that? Because I thought it can only be spent on the tourism.
Yep.
So what debt service we talking about?
You want to? Shall I?
You can.
All right. Matter of fact, our superhero can also tell you that the Tourism Commission had talked about planning for a Veterans Memorial Convention Center on the corner. They began with some of the plans, and then the cost of the facility, like everything else, went through the roof.
Yeah.
So we're kind of on hold on that till.
And the materials.
And the materials, it's everything.
We
So I think-
had borrowed some money for engineering services and
Yep.
architecture services and all
So
that.
there's some debt service.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there has to be some debt paid back.
We didn't have that in the budget for 2022.
Mhm.
Because it should have been in the budget.
Well, for 2022, we had $5 million. You don't pay back the debt service the same year that you bond. So we did not borrow $5 million. We borrowed $700,000. And now we're paying that loan back. We did use some of it on engineering services.
Okay,
Obviously.
So that's what, $700,000 which we borrowed in 2021.
Right.
Okay, that's good. And I had one more question I forgot. Never mind.
Actually, that was my question, was what's going on with the convention center? So it's on hold for now because of the costs. Hopefully, some things, they might come down. I mean, hopefully later.
Yeah.
With supplies and stuff.
Thank you, Carrie.
The last thing we wanted to do was build a facility or campus or be a part of this campus that was not a functional building, and that's where we were trending. Like, we don't just want to build something to build it.
Yeah.
We want it
and
to
then-
be nice and
Yeah.
appropriate, so we had to wait.
I remember my question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Maureen, you mentioned earlier, there's no budget for transfer to parks, so you, Maureen, I think Mike or Maureen, you said, how are we paying for the campus park? It's not, so that's not coming from the tourism?
Ted,
Yeah.
That,
It's not.
that's TID.
Yes.
TID
Well,
too?
2/3 of it, I mean, no, excuse me, 2/5. There's a portion of, do you want to go into that?
I think we'll cover that tomorrow when
Yeah,
we're talking
we do
about
have-
the
we have
TID.
storage coming tomorrow
Yeah.
evening,
That's fine,
so.
if you can remember your question for tomorrow.
if I remember.
We'll remind you.
Rob, write it down.
We got it.
Thanks, Carrie.
Yep.
And we'll remind everybody again, October 26th is the expectations of the park opening, and everybody should be there.
Oh,
Except me,
October 26th.
Oh, yes, yep,
I'm traveling.
and I plan on using that park, so.
And is that band shell, or do we plan to have bands there? And, oh,
Nice.
well,
We're already talking about that bike race that we did this year, possibly moving it over here and making it more of a community base where we have vendors and businesses and
Excellent.
use the park.
Excellent.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
All right, last item on the agenda is legal.
Well, Chris has got me covering this for him, which is fine.
At his same fees?
Absolutely not. So, as you guys know, Chris did come on as a village employee. He has since moved on to become an employee of Von Briesen. Therefore, really the big change here is going to be, obviously, the salary and fringe benefits goes to zero. Money really gets shifted down into the professional services line. He's still our village attorney. He's just not part of our salaries and fringe benefits. pretty straightforward, really.
And now the way he's working for us, he'll be billing out monthly, we'll get invoices from him.
Yep.
So the 185, that's kind of an estimate of what his his time
Yeah, and there
would
might be some other, maybe little legal expenses in there, not to do with him, maybe some of the negotiations going on or items like that. But, you know, he'd be the majority of that 185 for sure.
And since Attorney Smith isn't here on a daily basis, we have our deputy director who's keeping an eye on that account very closely.
And the contracted services is other legal representation that we would need from time to time for.
That might be our HR
Yeah.
legal team as far as maybe some policy questions or something. Maybe to that.
HR, contracts for represented employees and that sort of thing.
When we have to do personnel investigations, it comes out of that account.
Yep.
Which reminds me, does everybody know who this young lady is who's sitting here?
I hope so.
No. I think she should be properly introduced
induced.
before the night's over.
Induced. Jesus. Well, this is Heather Teagland. She's, when would she start? Teigland? Oh, sorry. So she started back in May, and she's been a great addition to the team. As far as me, Myra, Fran, and now we have, you know, half of her, because half of her resides also for HR, but she's been a great addition to the team.
Right. Yes.
Well, it seems like we have a very strong team, there's no doubt. And you guys seem to know what we need to keep an eye on versus what we as trustees could possibly even, you know, track on a regular basis. You all seem to be very well directed in terms of what you're looking at, what our concerns would be. And thank you for making this process, for us, much more manageable and informative. It would be very difficult.
High functioning.
Yes.
We got one last item. We got opioid 89.
So the opioid program, you know, Chris had spoken at length about this with you guys as a board a few different times. And it's really kind of in flux. We're not really sure what to expect. I mean, I think at this point we know that there's going to be a couple $100,000 in proceeds coming. As far as the timing of that, we're just not sure at this point. So as you can see, I have a revenue of $75,000. As far as expenses, nothing's planned yet. I'm not gonna guarantee that nothing will be spent, and if something is, then we come back to you guys as a board and make the appropriate changes. You know, I think that's something that we would have to involve our fire and police guys also. So, you know, this is just something that we need to be aware of and something that needs to be part of this process. But again, it's kind of in flux, and we're just trying to kind of see where things end up.
Right, this is some couple $100,000 settlement, we think, and it's to be paid out over a number of years, and that's why you're throwing in $75,000. And like other things, it's somewhat of a restricted account, and those payments or that revenue would go to certain police-type functions.
Yep.
Does each community get a say in how to use that money?
No.
Or are there's mandates, I know under the federal money, there were certain things that had, you know, counseling and,
No, most of them are handled at the county level. If you remember, due to Chris's being on the ball, he was able to deal us into that
yes,
settlement.
I do remember
Yeah.
that. I do remember that. That's why I was asking how much we as an individual community, Dave, would have a say in it, or certainly working with the
There's some
county.
guidelines
Yeah.
that are out there, and both chiefs are aware of it.
Yeah,
Has to be
we're-
drug and alcohol abuse
We're kind of an
related.
outlier in terms of participating in that in the first place, but yeah, it's there's restricted uses for it.
So, a follow-up question to that, because it's a guess, we don't know when, so I hope how we're going to spend the money is not already budgeted in some place other, right? It's just a placeholder.
Right,
Right.
right.
You'll have an ultimate, it'll be brought to the board. We can't spend money without your authority.
No, I know, we can't
We can
spend,
take it
as
in,
long
but
as,
we can't
as long
spend
as
it.
it's not already budgeted for
Nope.
whatever.
Both the police chief and fire chief are aware and chomping at the bit in some ways.
Looks
Remember,
like we're
we
gonna be
use
done before our
Narcan.
time, which is great.
all
Well,
those
there
other
was
things.
one other,
Next meetings.
there was one other thing
Add it
I
to the
wanted to
next
talk
meeting?
about,
Uh-oh.
since we have the time.
Yeah.
If that's okay.
What are some
One other-
examples of what can be done? Is this, could this be used for counter narcotic?
You know, from, when Chris spoke about it, it was pretty, seemed to me that if it had to do with anything to do with getting narcotics off the street or any kind of programming, it's
Narcan,
pretty, yeah, I mean, it's pretty,
I think
there's
one
not
of
a
the
whole lot
things,
you can't do.
one of the things they were talking about was, you know, educational type, programs and, wheeling and dealing with people that are charged for these crimes and setting them on a different path and,
There will be
you know,
a
that sort of thing.
future committee of the whole meeting where we'll discuss that. Both chiefs are planning on bringing in a plan.
Okay.
Mhm.
Stay tuned.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Mike, you got the final words.
Yeah, so the last thing I wanted to talk about, because I think it's a good time, I mean, it's gonna take me a few minutes. Page 10 of your books, 11, page 11, I'm sorry. Now, you know, I consider this the most important page of the budget book, because it's really what our taxpayers are paying to support the village. And I just kind of wanted to go down and point out kind of, you know, the bigger differences here, just to kind of let you guys know where we're at, and then kind of talk about the overall slight increase that there is. For recreation, Fund 245, going from 55,000 to 74,000. I mean, you guys see the park that's across the street. There's gonna be more activities planned. It's really a no-brainer. Solid waste, going from $1,050,000 to $1,190,000. That's gonna be one of the funds that we talk about tomorrow as well. That's just a contract amount that we have with them. Going down to Fund 700, you know, that's the other post-employment benefit line. And we did a good job of putting 100,000 in there for 2021, putting 200,000 for 2022. For this year, it's kind of a lean year, and I think we're not gonna put any funds in there right now. Just so you're aware, there is a $300,000 fund balance in that, and it's restricted to only be used for other post-employment benefit. And you know, this was something that Maureen and I had kind of come up with, because as far as sick time turning into post-employment benefits, this is something that we can kind of have moving forward. But for this year, we just thought it was a good idea to just not have any funds go, not have any taxpayer funds go in there. And we have a $300,000 balance. It's good seed money. But just for this year, we'll stick with that.
And honestly, we've had people retire and we haven't tapped into it. So we've managed it through our regular budget
Yep.
line items.
Cool.
And I did want to point out also that we did have the same levy for the roads. I mean, that was kind of something that we did for 2022, and moving forward, we'll still got that in there. And you know, the bottom line here, our tax levy from 2022 to 2023, 1.77% increase. That's really not a huge increase.
Right. Can
So-
I ask a couple questions?
I mean, that's up to.
Maybe some of the
If it has to do with recycling or solid waste or whatever, let's wait till tomorrow.
No. Yeah, no. My two questions are the tax levy, which is good, but I'm assuming you account for, like we heard, the proposed mill rate and the increase in the assessments, right?
Yep,
So that's already built into
yep,
that, correct?
yep. So with what we have on this page here, the 24, 115, 888, that's with us looking with probably a 30-cent mill rate decrease.
Plus the assessment, increase in the assessment value.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I have an estimated assessed value that I got from Dan,
Yeah.
and that's what we're using, so.
And my number two question is between the bus service and shared Racine, we just signed an agreement with the city of Racine for bus service for next year for 500 and something.
Yep, TID 5 is paying the difference. This is only the taxpayer, this is only the levy money.
TID 5 is paying some of
Yeah,
it?
Yep.
just
See,
already
again,
done.
I don't want to get into all the specifics here because there's breakouts that you're not seeing.
Okay, that's fine. We'll come back to him because he presented, so that raises the question.
He was just touching on the highlights.
So if the budget is passed as it's presented, then the 24,115,000, that would be
That's the
what
levy.
we would need to levy for.
Yep.
Yep.
But if it's only 1.77% increase, that doesn't seem. The whole, if assessed values went up 12%, but we're only bringing the mill rate down by, I don't know what it would be,
It comes to about
5% or something. I don't know, it seems that maybe the mill rate should come down even further. I don't know.
Whole new question, whole new discussion.
That's another
It's a
discussion.
number that I anxiously await every year, and we'll have to see where it comes in at,
Yeah.
but, I mean,
See, the average people out there, normal, they don't care about how many million we get in tax levy. All they care is
What they have to
what's
pay.
my assessment, what I'm going to pay. That's all.
And I would say to you, this is 30% of their tax bill. So it very much depends upon what the other taxing jurisdictions do
Yeah.
with their budgets.
This is
The biggest, of course, is the school district. And the school district, I have been told, is keeping the rate the same. So, but these are good things when you talk about from a TID perspective.
Yep.
As you recall, we would like the school district to do what it's doing with its rate. That's the reality of a TID. Because when they tax at that higher rate, that's good for our TIDs.
Okay.
Or the same rate as the year
We had
before.
somebody come up at one of the meetings, remember, and complain about all this money that we're giving away. He didn't understand.
Yeah, we're not giving any money away, we're paying for the projects that,
I-
you know all this, right? I don't wanna,
He didn't understand that.
yep.
Okay, I think we're done for tonight.
Idea, because we could go on a couple more hours. Yes, please leave your books here, leave everything here.
Same
There's not
time,
another
same
meeting.
place.
Not another meeting
Tomorrow at 4
scheduled tomorrow.
o'clock.
everybody will have
And
some new
I-
pages tomorrow as far as the housekeeping, just a FYI.
Okay.
And as is
We
usual,
won't remove the pages, just
think-
so everybody,
our finance
see.
director will bring a better treat too, so.
I will be wearing the same outfit, please don't judge me.
Okay, so they're being